Chapter 1800. On this day, Su Zimo was cultivating in the straw hut, when he suddenly heard a commotion outside. Apex X-23 Usmani chaotic footsteps were rushing towards this place. They're here. Opening his eyes slowly, Su Zimo stood up and pushed the door open to leave. Duan Tianliang was running towards this place, panting and looking nervous. When he reached Su Zimo, he was already sweating profusely. Boss Su, bad news. Missy knows about this, and is rushing here. Duan Tianliang said while panting. Su Zimo glanced at Duan Tianliang. Duan Tianliang shuddered and hurriedly waved his hands. Boss Su, I didn't say that. The immortal herbs in this spiritual field are growing so well and so quickly. It will definitely reach Missy. At this moment, a group of figures appeared in the distance. The leader was Missy Xia Qingying of Wind Snow Ridge. Commander Liang Qiu was still following closely behind Xia Qingying. His face was gloomy as he looked at Su Zimo with a cold smile. Many farmers surrounded Xia Qingying, and Old Yin was one of them, looking at Su Zimo with a worried gaze. Xia Qingying had not changed much after a year. She looked at the essence nurturing grass and rain flowers that were about to mature in the spiritual field, and her eyes lit up. She had come here personally a year ago, and saw with her own eyes that the immortal herbs in this spiritual field had been destroyed. However, it had only been a year, and the immortal herbs in these spiritual fields had grown so well. At first, when Xia Qingying heard the rumors about this, she just smiled faintly and ignored them, thinking that the farmers were just spouting nonsense. However, during this period of time, this matter became more and more widespread, and even the guards of Wind Snow Ridge were talking about it. Finally, it attracted her attention. What's going on? Xia Qingying's gaze paused on Su Zimo for a while, and finally landed on Duan Tianliang's face as she asked slowly. This? Duan Tianliang stammered, his eyes evading as he kept wiping the sweat on his forehead. It's me, Su Zimo suddenly said. I once obtained a jade bottle in the starry sky. There is a drop of spirit liquid inside, but I don't know what it is for. When I used the art of bewitching, I accidentally broke the jade bottle. The drop of spirit liquid mixed into it and irrigated the spirit field. This spiritual field is growing so fast. It must be because of that drop of spiritual liquid. Su Zimo had long expected that this matter could not be concealed. Naturally, he had prepared this speech long ago. There were some flaws in his words, but it was hard for others to tell the truth. Only Duan Tianliang knew in his heart that Su Zimo had been cultivating in the straw hut all day. He had never released the art of bewitching. He was the one who released the bewitching technique in this spiritual field, and he had never seen any spiritual liquid. However, Duan Tianliang lowered his head and said nothing. He did not stand out to expose Su Zimo. What kind of spiritual liquid is this? It actually has such power. It's just a drop, and it increased the growth speed of the essence nurturing grass and rain flower by 100 times. That's right. Immortal herbs that take 100 years to mature grew to this extent in a year. The herbalists in the surroundings whispered to each other in astonishment. Liang Qiu sneered. What nonsense! What kind of spiritual liquid can have such an effect to make 2 immortal herbs mature in a year? Just because you haven't seen it before doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Su Zimo said indifferently and asked, if it's not the credit of this spiritual liquid, Commander Liang, can you explain what's going on with these dozens of mu of spiritual fields? Liang Qiu grit his teeth and was speechless for a moment. The scene in front of him was indeed worthy of being called an immortal, and he couldn't find any other reason. Xia Qingying pondered for a moment and asked, how much of this spirit liquid do you have? No more. Su Zimo shrugged slightly. Only 1 drop. I've already used it. That was the only way to make others stop thinking about it. What a pity. If there was more of this spiritual liquid, the immortal herbs would mature 100 times faster, and we would be able to get more essence formation pills to cultivate. Many farmers shook their heads and sighed. Xia Qingying looked regretful as well. Liang Qiu raised his head slightly and glared at Su Zimo with an unfriendly expression. He sneered. How can there be such a coincidence in this world? I don't believe that you only have 1 drop of this spiritual liquid. There's nothing I can do if you don't believe me. Su Zimo replied indifferently. Of course there's a way. Liang Qiu's eyes shone fiercely as he suddenly strode forward and shouted, hand over your storage bag and let me check it. Don't. Xia Qingying frowned and hurriedly stopped him. However, Liang Qiu was extremely fast and darted past Xia Qingying without warning. He arrived in front of Su Zimo and reached out for Su Zimo's waist. The storage bag was indeed hanging on Su Zimo's waist. However, Liang Qiu's palm was clearly not aimed at the storage bag, as he did not hold back. If that palm landed, Su Zimo's spine would probably be snapped before he could even get his hands on the storage bag. In the upper realm, a broken spine was considered a serious injury. If one did not recuperate well, there was a high chance that the lower half of their body would be completely crippled. Liang Qiu's palm was sinister. Many medicine farmers also reacted and let out a burst of exclamations. It's over. Commander Liang is a rank 4 mystic immortal. If he goes all out with that palm, Su Zimo will probably lose half his life. This little brother has just ascended and is arrogant. He's still not mature enough. Why did he have to go against Commander Liang? Sigh, what a pity. Everyone felt pity in their hearts and could not bear it. Piak! There was a crisp sound. Liang Qiu's figure froze instantly. Many herbalist farmers widened their eyes in disbelief. Before Liang Qiu's palm landed on Su Zimo's waist, it stopped in midair. Su Zimo had suddenly reached out and grabbed Liang Qiu's wrist. No one saw how Su Zimo did it. However, Liang Qiu's wrist was stiff in midair. No matter how he channeled his strength, it could not land or move. Many farmers were in an uproar. This little brother can actually block Commander Liang's attack. That's not right. This little brother has just ascended and is only a rank 1 mystic immortal. How is that possible? A wave of commotion broke out in the crowd. Right then, Xia Qingying looked at Su Zimo's face and her eyes lit up. She said slowly, rank 4 mystic immortal. Some herb farmers reacted as well and checked Su Zimo's body with their spirit consciousnesses. They were shocked as well. It's only been a year and this little brother has already cultivated to a rank 4 mystic immortal? What kind of cultivation speed is this? In the crowd, the only one who looked normal was Duan Tianliang. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly with a hint of killing intent. He stared at Liang Qiu and asked slowly, what is Commander Liang trying to do? Chapter 1801. At that moment, Liang Qiu's face was ashen as he grit his teeth. He felt as though his wrist was shackled by an iron cuff, and he could not move at all. He felt as though his wrist was about to break, let alone free himself from Su Zimo's grasp. Liang Qiu was in so much pain that he almost fainted. However, in front of everyone, he did not dare to make a sound for the sake of his dignity, and could only hold on. I just wanted to take your storage bag. Hurry and let go. Liang Qiu gritted his teeth and explained in a trembling voice. Fellow Taoist Su, you had better let go. Xia Qingying noticed Liang Qiu's expression and could not help but say, Liang Qiu's actions were too reckless. I'll apologize on your behalf. After all, we're all from Snow Ridge. Please show mercy. All right, Su Zimo nodded. Since you're pleading for mercy, I'll let him go. Su Zimo released his grip. As though he had been pardoned, Liang Qiu retreated hurriedly. He staggered and almost fell but was supported by 2 guards hurriedly. Liang Qiu's face was pale, and his forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. His wrist was behind his back, and most people could not see it. Only a few people could see that Liang Qiu's wrist was trembling slightly. Liang Qiu's attack was extremely vicious. Although Su Zimo spared his life on account of Xia Qingying, he made him suffer quite a bit. Liang Qiu's wrist was already broken. Fellow Taoist Su, did you hide your cultivation previously? Xia Qingying asked. Liang Qiu could not help but say, Missy, this person's background is unknown, and he hid his cultivation. He must have ulterior motives. In my opinion, we should inform the protector to take action and suppress this person for interrogation. Ever since Liang Qiu ascended, he had never suffered as such and naturally hated Su Zimo to the core. The other guards looked at Su Zimo with hostility and wariness as well. No matter what, Su Zimo had only ascended for a year, and was still considered an outsider in their eyes. Xia Qingying did not reply, and merely looked at Su Zimo. as though she was waiting for Su Zimo to give her an explanation. I'm not hiding my cultivation, Su Zimo said. It's just that when I was ascending, something unexpected happened. That's why I landed on Long Yuan planet. Xia Qingying seemed to have heard something and suddenly asked, how many heavenly tribulations did you pass before you ascended? 49 heavenly tribulations, Su Zimo said indifferently. Ah, it's the 49th heavenly tribulation. Cries of surprise rang out from all around. One had to know that those who ascended to the Dragon Abyss Star had all undergone the 19th heavenly tribulation. It was said that those who had passed the 29 heavenly tribulations, 39 heavenly tribulations, and 49 heavenly tribulations could only ascend to other regions of the Azure Cloud County, where the yuan qi of heaven and earth was many times denser than the Dragon Abyss Star. I see. Xia Qingying nodded. She then shook her head and said, what a pity. What is it? Su Zimo asked. Xia Qingying explained. I heard from father that there are some immortal sects and academies in Cyan Cloud County. Those who have passed the 2 nines, 3 nines, and 4 nines heavenly tribulations have the possibility of entering these immortal sects and academies. There aren't any on the Dragon Abyss Star? Su Zimo asked again. Xia Qingying shook her head and said, the yuan qi on the Dragon Abyss Star is thin, and resources are scarce. Those who ascended from the lower realm and were abandoned by the exalted immortals. How could there be any immortal sects and academies here? Old Yin had said something similar before. Liang Qiu secretly swallowed a bullet just now and felt the pain on his wrist lessen a lot. Hearing this, he could not help but sneer. Liang Qiu followed behind Xia Qingying and secretly glanced at Su Zimo with a vicious gaze. Ziyanga, Su Zimo muttered softly, a little confused. Duan Tianliang explained at the side. Zuyingu is considered one of the 8 major forces on this Dragon Abyss planet. It's also the largest force in the vicinity. And the core condensation pills of our Wind Snow Ridge are collected every 10 years from a batch of mature immortal herbs and go to Zuyingu to exchange for them. Ow! Su Zimo frowned and asked, since there are immortal herbs, why don't you refine them yourself? Boss Su, you must be joking. Duan Tianliang said. The formula for the core condensation pill is in the hands of the immortals in the upper realm. We flew up from the lower realm and are not qualified to learn it at all. Chapter 1802. The immortals of the upper realm were willing to impart even the most common prescription for the core condensation pill. This meant that most of the cultivation resources in the upper realm were under the control of the various immortal sects and academies. It was almost impossible for the living beings who ascended from the lower realm to seek immortality with their own efforts and talents. For example, although Duan Tianliang, Old Yen, and the rest had only passed 19 heavenly tribulations, their talents and qualifications were definitely top-notch. However, they did not have enough cultivation resources and could only stay on this Dragon Abyss planet. Even after thousands or tens of thousands of years, their cultivation did not improve much. As for the descendants of some native immortals, when they were just born, they had countless resources and treasures to temper their flesh and build their foundation. Even if their talents were average, their cultivation realm could be improved steadily. Su Zimo thought for a while and asked, Zuyingu is one of the 8 major forces of the Dragon Abyss planet. Do they have people who can refine the core condensation pill? No. Duan Tianliang shook his head. The 8 major forces of the Dragon Abyss planet were all built up by the many cultivators who ascended from the lower realm. They are not qualified to refine immortal pills. Then where did Ziyinga's core condensation pill come from? Su Zimo asked again. Duan Tianliang replied, I heard that they exchanged for it in Dragon Lake City. I'm not sure about the details. Dragon Lake City was the largest city on the Dragon Abyss planet, and also the center of all the major forces. Only in Dragon Lake City were some native immortals gathered. Su Zimo nodded and returned to the straw hut. Actually, his cultivation realm had already recovered to Mystic Aeon stage for half a year ago, which was also a stage for Mystic Immortal. This was not considered an increase in cultivation. It was just a natural recovery of his realm after coming to the upper realm and interacting with the heaven and earth essence qi. In this half a year, his cultivation did not improve much. One must know that the upper realm was different from the lower realm. Even the lowest mystic immortal had a lifespan of 100,000 years. Even in areas with rich heaven and earth essence qi, the unit of time for the living beings of the upper realm to cultivate was easily thousands or tens of thousands of years. A year was like 2 hours in the eyes of the immortals of the upper realm. The path of cultivation was long. Without a firm heart, one would not be able to reach the end of the great Tao. 10 days later, early in the morning, Su Zimo arrived at the entrance of Wind Snow Ridge. Xia Qingying, Liang Qiu, and a group of Wind Snow Ridge guards also arrived one after another. Su Zimo glanced at it. There were about 100 guards heading to Zuyanga this time. Each of them was riding a tall and sturdy horse. It was obvious that they were top-notch divine chariots. Over the past few days, Su Zimo had learned from Duan Tianliang that there were only 400 guards in Wind Snow Ridge. This time, they had directly mobilized a quarter of Feng Shuling's guards to escort 2 types of immortal herbs. This showed how much importance Feng Shuling placed on this trip. Those who could become Feng Shuling's guards were all rank 3 mystic immortals. Most of these guards had never seen Su Zimo before. They were curious about this cultivator, who had just been promoted to the young Miss Personal Guard. Xia Qingying was extremely eye-catching in the crowd. She was draped in a white cloak, and the white horse beneath her was extremely spirited. There was not a single blemish on its color, and there was even a single horn on its head. It was actually a unicorn divine beast. Fellow Taoist Su over here. When Xia Qingying saw Su Zimo, she waved her hand and called out to Su Zimo. Xia Qingying was also leading another divine chariot. Its entire body was covered in crimson fur. It was smooth and shiny, as if it was dyed in blood. It was also spirited and extraordinary. This is a crimson blood horse. It is also a rare divine chariot. Its leg strength is amazing. I'll give it to you in the future, Xia Qingying said with a smile. In the upper realm, due to the higher level of the laws and more perfect, it caused the space and earth to become extremely firm and hard. On the Dragon Abyss planet, mystic immortals could fly in the air, but their altitude would usually not exceed 90 feet. Once it exceeded 90 feet, mystic immortals would suffer from a huge pressure and fall from mid-air. The speed of cultivators flying in the air was much faster. However, flying in the air consumed an extremely large amount of essence qi. Even a rank 9 mystic immortal could not fly very far. Therefore, on the Dragon Abyss planet, almost all mystic immortals would use various kinds of demon beasts as their mounts. Legend had it that only earth immortals could completely break free from the attraction of the ground. Moreover, the essence qi in an earth immortal's body was strong and majestic, and they could fly in the air for a long time. As for heaven immortals, they were powerful existences that could cross the galaxy. In this year, Su Zimo had secretly tried it. Although he was only a rank 4 mystic immortal, the height of Qinglian's real body in the air could completely break through 90 feet and reach 100 feet. Moreover, Qinglian's real body's self-healing ability was amazing. This self-healing ability was not only reflected in the healing of injuries, but also in the recovery of heaven and earth essence qi. In other words, Su Zimo could completely maintain a high speed on the Dragon Abyss planet and fly in the air for a long time. Of course, there was no need for him to reveal such a method. He did not refuse Xia Qingying's gift of the crimson blood horse. The other guards all revealed envious expressions. Liang Qiu, who was following behind Xia Qingying, was expressionless. His wrist was broken by Su Zimo, and it had not healed even after 10 years. Liang Qiu naturally remembered such a great shame and humiliation in his heart. He would wait for an opportunity to settle the score with Su Zimo. Go on. Xia Qingying patted the crimson blood horse, indicating for it to go over. However, this crimson blood horse looked at Su Zimo, but did not dare to go forward. Its hooves were constantly raised and lowered, as if it was somewhat uneasy. One had to know that even ordinary mounts in the upper realm had spirituality. This crimson blood horse vaguely felt that there seemed to be an aura on Su Zimo that made it extremely fearful. Xia Qingying was slightly stunned and said, "What's going on?" This crimson blood horse is quite smart. Could it be that it's afraid of strangers? Nothing. Su Zimo's figure flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he had already flipped over, and that crimson blood horse did not even have time to react. Let's go. Su Zimo patted the crimson blood horse under him and smiled slightly. This crimson blood horse trembled all over. How could it dare to hesitate? It carried Su Zimo and led the way. How many immortal herbs are we escorting this time? On the way, Su Zimo and Xia Qingying walked side by side and asked. Xia Qingying said, including your dozen mu of mature immortal herbs, there are more than 101,000 stalks of vitality-nurturing grass and rain flower each. Su Zimo nodded. Normally, 1 mu of land could produce 100 stalks of vitality-nurturing grass and rain flower each. 100,000 stalks of immortal herbs meant 1,000 mu of land managed by 100 herb farmers. Although the two types of immortal herbs matured once every 100 years, the immortal herbs in Snow Wind Ridge were planted at different times. This way, they could harvest about 100,000 stalks of immortal herbs every 10 years and go to Zuyingu to exchange for them. 100,000 stalks of immortal herbs. How many vitality-nurturing pills can be exchanged for? Su Zimo asked again. Xia Qingying smiled bitterly and said, only 1,000 pills. So little. Su Zimo frowned. Chapter 1803. There were 100,000 stalks of vitality-nurturing grass and rain flowers, but they could only be exchanged for 1,000 vitality coagulation pills. One had to know that these 1,000 vitality coagulation pills had to be distributed to the 100 guards and 10 wardens. Feng Shuling still had to keep a portion for himself, which ultimately fell into the hands of the 100 medicine farmers. There was not much left at all. Every medicine farmer could only get 3 vitality coagulation pills. Even if there were 100 guards on this trip, each of them could only get 4 core solidifying pills. This added up to 700 vitality coagulation pills. The remaining vitality coagulation pills had to be distributed to the wardens and commanders. Even Feng Shuling did not have many left. To the medicine farmers and guards of Feng Shuling, these 3 to 4 vitality coagulation pills were the only cultivation resources they had for the next 10 years. Su Zimo frowned. The cultivation environment here was crueler and worse than he had imagined. Duan Tianliang, Old Yen, and the rest had not improved much in their cultivation for thousands, or even tens of thousands of years. It was not only because Dragon Abyss Planet's vitality was thin. It was just that the most basic cultivation resources like vitality coagulation pills were so rare. Not to mention them, even Su Zimo, who had Qinglian's real body, did not have enough cultivation resources, and his cultivation level would increase slowly. Do you know how many stalks of vitality-nurturing grass and rain flowers can be used to refine 1 vitality coagulation pill? Su Zimo asked. I heard that 1 stalk of vitality-nurturing grass and rain flower is enough to refine a normal vitality coagulation pill, Xia Qingying said. 1 stalk of immortal herb could be used to refine 1 vitality coagulation pill. However, because the recipe for the vitality coagulation pill was in the hands of the various large sects, cultivators who ascended from the lower realm needed 100 stalks of immortal herbs to exchange for 1 vitality coagulation pill. Zuyingu is also unable to refine vitality coagulation pills. So where do they get their immortal pills? Su Zimo thought for a while and asked again. Xia Qingying said, just now, all the immortal pills on Dragon Abyss Planet are available in one place. And that is Dragon Abyss City. That's where many native immortals from the upper realm gather. Zuyingu's soul solidifying pill is also exchanged there. After pausing for a while, Xia Qingying continued. However, I heard that if you want to exchange for an origin condensing pill in Dragon Lake City, you only need 10 stalks of origin nurturing grass and rain flowers each. Su Zimo frowned and said. In other words, Zuyingu used 10 stalks of immortal herbs to exchange for sufficient origin condensing pills in Dragon Lake City, and then asked us to use 100 stalks of immortal herbs to exchange for them? Not bad. Xia Qingying nodded. Su Zimo sneered and said, Zuyingu is really shady. 1 round trip, and the difference is 10 times. Su Zimo asked, why did Feng Shuling choose to go to Zuyanggu instead of directly going to Longyuan City to exchange for the soul condensing pill? Hehe. Liang Qiu was jealous when he saw Su Zimo and Xia Qingying chatting happily at the side. Hearing this, he could not help but sneer. How ignorant. Su Zimo ignored this person, and did not even look at him. Xia Qingying's expression dimmed as she shook her head and said, this is also something that can't be helped. The journey from here to Dragon Lake City is long. One round trip will take about half a year. And during this period, we have to pass through hundreds of thousands of mountains, dense forests, and countless dangerous places. Most importantly, we have to face the plundering and killing of the 4 great bandits of Dragon Lake Planet. At this point, Xia Qingying sighed and said, there are countless small forces like Feng Shuling on Dragon Lake Planet, but not many can reach Dragon Lake City alive. Even if they enter Dragon Lake City alive, it's impossible to come back alive. The road to Dragon Lake City is almost a death trap. 4 great bandits. Su Zimo muttered softly. Xia Qingying said, there are many bandits on Dragon Lake Planet. Amongst them, the strongest and most powerful are the 4 great bandits. Actually, these bandits are all cultivators that ascended from the upper realms. They rely on killing, burning, and plundering to move freely on Dragon Lake Planet, and commit all sorts of crimes. No one cares about the immortals of Dragon Lake City. Su Zimo asked with a frown. Xia Qingying shook her head and said, why would the immortals of the upper realms care about our life and death? They only leave us to fend for ourselves and kill each other. Moreover, the lair of the 4 great bandits is not fixed, and they roam all over the place all year round. It's utterly impossible to annihilate them. If they are unable to annihilate them in one go, once these bandits rise from the ashes, the cultivators that make a move against them will suffer their bloody revenge. Xia Qingying thought for a moment, then said, I heard Father say that there were 3 great forces on Dragon Lake Planet that joined forces to annihilate a branch of the bandit army. Although this branch of bandits suffered heavy losses, the bandit leader escaped. Not long after, he returned and crazily took revenge on the 3 great forces. The 3 great forces suffered heavy losses, and in the end, they were dragged down by this branch of the bandit army, and were later swallowed up and replaced by other forces. Zuyanggu rose in this way. Su Zimo nodded and said, in that case, the 8 great forces on Dragon Lake Planet all have a certain level of strength, and can head to Dragon Lake Planet to exchange for core condensing pills. Yes, Xia Qingying nodded and said, if you can head to Dragon Lake Planet to exchange for core condensing pills, and come back alive, theoretically, you can stand shoulder to shoulder with the 8 great forces. As the group of people in Wind Snow Ridge moved forward, Su Zimo also learned a lot of information from Xia Qingying. Unknowingly, it was already noon. At this moment, Su Zimo's ears twitched, as if he had sensed something, and a cold light flashed past his eyes. Although they were all level 4 mystic immortals, Xia Qingying and Liang Qiu were still fearless. Su Zimo suddenly asked, how far is this place from Zuyanggu? Less than a day's journey, Xia Qingying said. If we set off in the morning, we will reach Zuyanggu in the evening. It's already noon now, and we will reach in half a day. Why don't we stop and rest? Xia Qingying thought that Su Zimo was a little tired, so she asked this question. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and asked again, will there be any bandits on this day's journey? Even if there are, there will be very few of them. Xia Qingying said, also these bandits aren't much of a threat. Tens or hundreds of them are gathered together, and without any strong cultivators holding the fort, they will disperse on their own when they see us guards. Don't worry, fellow Taoist Su. This area is still considered to be under Zuyanggu's control. Generally speaking, the 4 great bandits will not invade easily. Rumble. At this moment, a slight tremor came from the ground, becoming more and more obvious and intense. It was as if there was a large army charging towards this place. Rumble. At this moment, a slight tremor came from the ground, becoming more and more obvious and intense. It was as if there was a large army charging towards this place. It was as if there was a large army charging towards this place. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1804. It's over, it's over. Liang Qiu's expression was ugly, and his eyes flickered with fear, as if he had received a huge shock. He was already in a mess as he muttered softly. If even the guard commander of Snow Wind Ridge was like this, the others were even worse off. Although Xia Qingying was still considered calm, her face was pale, and she looked nervous. Who is it? Su Zimo frowned and asked. One of the 4 great bandits, the Evil Wolf Army, Xia Qingying said seriously. I heard that every mystic immortal in the Evil Wolf Army has a black-scaled fiend wolf as a mount. They come and go like the wind. The Evil Wolf Army follows the nature of wolves and is ferocious and bloodthirsty. Almost none of the forces targeted by them can survive. Back then, it was the Evil Wolf Army that made a comeback and slowly destroyed the 3 great forces of Dragon Abyss Planet. Su Zimo asked, what's the cultivation of the leader of the Evil Wolf Army? Legend has it that he's a stage 8 mystic immortal. Xia Qingying said softly. Su Zimo said, the Evil Wolf Army in front has about 500 people. It shouldn't be the leader of the Evil Wolf Army, who came personally. Even if the leader of the Evil Wolf Army came, he probably wouldn't be able to stop them. Xia Qingying shook her head slightly. Strange. Suddenly, Xia Qingying frowned and muttered softly. This is Ziyang's territory. Why would the Evil Wolf Army appear? Moreover, we only have 100,000 immortal herbs on this trip. It doesn't make sense for us to be targeted by a force like the Evil Wolf Army. Just as they were talking, the army in the distance had already arrived, and wolf howls could be heard one after another. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. The leader of the Evil Wolf Army was wearing bronze armor that was stained with blood and holding a huge halberd. The wolf under him had a ferocious expression, and its eyes emitted a green light. It opened its mouth and revealed sharp wolf teeth that were covered in saliva. This evil wolf was covered in pitch-black scales. It looked incomparably hard and invulnerable. Its body was robust, just like a giant elephant. The war horses under the many guards of Snow Wind Ridge were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered in front of this black-scaled fiend wolf, trembling. Roar! The leader raised the halberd in his hand and whistled as he looked at Xia Qingying and the others with an excited expression. The 500 Wolf Army soldiers behind him seemed to have received some kind of order. They split into 2 groups and surrounded the people from Wind Snow Ridge. They roared excitedly. Surrounded by the wolves, the war horses of the Wind Snow Ridge guards couldn't even stand still. They all knelt down. For a moment, Wind Snow Ridge was thrown into chaos, and everyone was thrown off their feet. The only thing that could still stand was the unicorn under Xia Qingying. Even the crimson blood horse under Su Zimo knelt down. Ha 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 ha. Seeing this scene, the crowd of the Evil Wolf Army burst into laughter. 5th stage Mystic Immortal. It's really over this time. Liang Qiu scanned with his spirit consciousness and discovered the realm of the bronze-armored cultivator leading the vicious wolf army. His face turned ashen. Su Zimo saw clearly that besides the bronze-armored cultivator in the lead, who was a Stage 5 Mystic Immortal, there were over 30 Stage 4 Mystic Immortals in the surrounding 500 Vicious Wolf Army. Be it in terms of numbers or combat strength, the Vicious Wolf Army was far superior to the people from Wind Snow Ridge. Where are you guys going? The bronze-armored cultivator rode on a tall black-scaled fiend wolf and looked down at Xia Qingying and the others. His eyes flickered with mockery as he asked leisurely, I'm Xia Qingying of Wind Snow Ridge. May I know how to address you, exalted immortal? Although Xia Qingying was a woman, she could still maintain her composure. She took a deep breath and asked loudly. On Wind Snow Ridge's side, although Liang Qiu was the guard commander, he had completely lost his composure. The only one who could still maintain his composure was Su Zimo. Liang Qiu glanced at Su Zimo and sneered in his heart. This person has just ascended and doesn't know the ferocity of the vicious wolf army. The ignorant are truly fearless. You're Xia Qingying? You're indeed quite pretty. No wonder. Before the bronze-armored cultivator could finish, he paused and laughed strangely. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The bronze-armored cultivator seemed to be implying something. Xia Qingying suppressed the fear in her heart and continued. Snow Wind Ridge is just a small force in the vicinity. The people in their territory are all cultivators who ascended from the lower realm. All these years, they have been well-behaved and worked hard, planting immortal herbs to exchange for essence-condensing pills. I know that all of you are also people who ascended from the lower realm. Exalted immortals, please be magnanimous, and let us off on account that we're all from the lower realm. Ha 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 ha. Laughter sounded from the vicious wolf army once again. Many of the vicious wolf army soldiers had mocking expressions as they looked at Xia Qingying, as though they were looking at an idiot. The bronze-armored cultivator sneered. Little girl, you're really naive. If we let you guys off, what will we eat and cultivate with? Xia Qingying said. You guys can also plant spirit fields. Humph. The bronze-armored cultivator did not wait for Xia Qingying to finish, and snorted coldly, interrupting her. We joined the vicious wolf army, because we don't want to be like you guys and be treated like sheep. On this Dragon Abyss planet, immortal herbs only mature once every 100 years. We don't have that patience. On Dragon Abyss planet, plundering resources was much easier than obediently planting immortal herbs. This was also why there were numerous bandits and bandits on Dragon Abyss Star. And it was even to the extent that 4 powerful bandit groups had been condensed into one. Exalted immortals, I only have about 100,000 immortal herbs on this trip to Zuyanggu. I'm willing to give all of these 100,000 immortal herbs to all of you. But please let us live, exalted immortals, Xia Qingying said. If the 100,000 immortal herbs were gone, then so be it. However, Xia Qingying wanted to bring the 100 guards back in one piece this time. From the beginning to the end, Su Zimo did not say anything. He did not plan to stay in Wind Snow Ridge for too long. He did not want to provoke a great enemy for Wind Snow Ridge because of his rash actions and invite disaster. It would be best if these vicious wolf army soldiers could leave directly after taking the immortal herbs. Haha. The bronze-armored cultivator sneered with a cold gaze. He raised the halberd in his hand and said slowly, I want to take the immortal herbs, but I also want to kill the people. Choking Chi-Chi novel. www. Other than this woman, kill everyone else. Yes. The vicious wolf army soldiers agreed with a roar. They were excited, and their eyes were filled with bloodlust. On the other hand, the people on Wind Snow Ridge's side were completely disheartened. Evil thief! Xia Qingying suddenly screamed. She glared and said loudly, If you really want to kill all of us, we will fight to the death. Your vicious wolf army will also suffer great losses. Actually, the people of Wind Snow Ridge knew in their hearts that their clash with the vicious wolf army was completely like throwing an egg at a rock. They were afraid that the vicious wolf army could drown and swallow the 100 of them with a single charge. Kill them. The bronze-armored cultivator was unmoved. He pointed his halberd and said coldly, Wait. At this moment, a calm voice sounded from the crowd. The bronze-armored cultivator bowed slightly and saw a man in green robes walk out from the crowd of Wind Snow Ridge. He had delicate features and looked like a weak scholar. MX. Chapter 1805. Su Zimo walked towards the bronze-armored cultivator at an unhurried pace. Even in the face of the tall and ferocious fiend wolf, his expression was still calm. Everyone from Wind Snow Ridge was secretly shocked. Not to mention other things, just the strong temperament and courage had already far surpassed them. The black-scaled fiend wolf beneath the bronze-armored cultivator was at level 4 Mystic Essence Realm. It was a level 4 Mystic Demon. Even Liang Qiu did not dare to approach. Fellow Taoist Su? Xia Qingying's gaze landed on Su Zimo, and a sense of anticipation surged in her heart. However, her expression dimmed before long. The difference between the two of them was too great. If Su Zimo was a level 5 Mystic Immortal, he might have a chance to negotiate with the other party. However, Su Zimo was only a level 4 Mystic Immortal. On the Dragon Abyss planet, the difference of a single realm could mean tens of thousands of years of cultivation. Initially, Su Zimo did not intend to step forward. However, since the wolf army wanted to kill him, he had no choice but to step forward. What are you trying to do? The bronze-armored cultivator looked down at Su Zimo, who was approaching from above with a mocking expression, as though he was looking at an ant. The green-robed cultivator standing in front of him was not even as tall as the black-scaled fiend wolf. As long as he said a single word, the black-scaled fiend wolf could devour the green-robed cultivator in a single gulp. However, at that moment, the bronze-armored cultivator was seated on the black-scaled fiend wolf and did not realize that the ferocious glint in its eyes had already disappeared. The level 4 mystic demon looked at Su Zimo with a confused and evasive gaze, as though it was afraid of something. "I'm not doing anything." Su Zimo raised his head slightly and said indifferently, "Everyone, you've taken the immortal herb. Let's disperse. There's no need to kill everyone." "What?" The bronze-armored cultivator looked at the other cultivators of the wolf army, as though he had heard the greatest joke in the world. The many members of the wolf army looked at each other, and then burst into laughter. "That person is an idiot, right? A level 4 mystic immortal is talking to our boss like that? Maybe he wants to be the first to die." The bronze-armored cultivator also looked at Su Zimo with a smile and asked, "I want to kill you all. What can you do about it?" "I'll kill you." Su Zimo suddenly spat out 2 words. As soon as he said the first word, he had already disappeared from his original spot. His figure flickered as he unleashed heaven's feet, earth-traversing golden light, and other minor divine abilities. In the blink of an eye, he was already on the back of the black-scaled demon wolf. It was too fast. Su Zimo's move was out of everyone's expectations. No one could react in time. "You." After all, the bronze-armored cultivator was a level 5 mystic immortal. Realizing that something was wrong, his pupils constricted. But at this moment, there was no time to release any divine abilities or secret arts. The bronze-armored cultivator could only subconsciously wave the halberd in his hand, thrusting it towards the incoming green figure. Time was too short, and in a rush, the bronze-armored cultivator could not even use his full strength for that thrust. However, Su Zimo had been accumulating his strength for a long time. Reaching out, he gripped the tip of the bronze-armored cultivator's halberd in a flash, and pushed it forward with force. The bronze-armored cultivator could not hold on to the halberd, and it slipped out of his hands instantly. Exclamation point. The next moment, a flash of blood appeared. The bronze-armored cultivator felt an intense pain in his chest, and his eyes widened uncontrollably. Everyone from Wind Snow Ridge was shocked as well. Su Zimo had actually used the tail of the halberd to pierce through the bronze-armored cultivator's armor and flesh. The bloodied halberd protruded from the back of the bronze-armored cultivator in a shocking manner. How much strength did one have to be able to do that? At that moment, Su Zimo had only just uttered the second word of "kill you." In other words, Su Zimo had already pierced a bloody hole in the body of the bronze-armored cultivator with his halberd in the time it took for Su Zimo to finish his sentence. For the body of a mystic immortal, that was a fatal injury. The vitality of the bronze-armored cultivator's body was draining rapidly. The bronze-armored cultivator was stunned for a moment before he snapped out of his daze and wanted to release his essence spirit. However, he was too slow. After Su Zimo pierced him with his halberd, he extended his finger and tapped the bronze-armored cultivator's glabella gently. Poof! Su Zimo's finger pierced a bloody hole in the tough glabella of the bronze-armored cultivator. His essence spirit was destroyed on the spot. The entire process took less than a single breath. It was not that the bronze-armored cultivator was too weak, but that he was caught off guard. In the lower realm, it was common for people to challenge and kill people of a higher realm. Those who could ascend were all proficient in that Tao. However, in the upper realm and on Dragon Abyss Planet, the difference of a single level was like the difference between heaven and earth. Furthermore, everyone ascended from the lower realm, and were all paragons and monster incarnates. How much of a difference could there be between them? Furthermore, Su Zimo was a level lower than him. Unfortunately, the bronze-armored cultivator did not know that even if they both ascended from the lower realm, there was still a huge difference between him and Su Zimo. He had only transcended the 19th heavenly tribulation, while Su Zimo had transcended the 49th heavenly tribulation. More importantly, Su Zimo's flesh was the only true body of Qinglian, who had already grown to a rank 9. Even if the bronze-armored cultivator was on guard, he might not be able to escape Su Zimo's various killing methods, let alone the fact that he was caught off guard. Ah, That scene caused an uproar. Not only were the people of Wind Snow Ridge stunned, even the surrounding wolf army were stunned. Dead. The leader of their army, a 5th-stage mystic immortal, had died just like that for no apparent reason. He died in the hands of a stage 4 mystic immortal. Xia Qingying was shocked as well. At that moment, Su Zimo revealed a decisive killing intent that was completely different from the gentle and refined scholar he usually was. Roar! The bronze armor cultivator's mount, the stage 4 mystic demon black-scaled fiend wolf, could not help but let out a howl when it sensed that scene. The fiend wolf leaped up, wanting to throw Su Zimo off its back. Humph! Su Zimo rode on the back of the black-scaled fiend wolf, and did not move at all. Suddenly, he exerted his strength and sank. Roar! The black-scaled fiend wolf let out a painful cry. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the fiend wolf that was as tall as an elephant was actually crushed by Su Zimo. Crack! Crack! The horrifying sound of bones cracking could be heard. The spine of the black-scaled fiend wolf was crushed by the terrifying strength that Su Zimo released. Plop! The black-scaled fiend wolf fell heavily to the ground and could no longer stand up. Dust flew everywhere. Su Zimo's palm pressed on the black-scaled fiend wolf's head and floated down. This seemingly casual palm had shattered the black-scaled fiend wolf's head, and even its primordial spirit could not escape. Kill him! The rest of the wolf army reacted and shouted. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as he stared at the stage 4 mystic immortal, who gave the order. His figure flickered and quickly disappeared on the spot. He arrived in front of this person and shouted, "Freeze!" This person had just taken out his Dharma treasure and was about to smash it at Su Zimo, but he felt a mysterious force wrap around his body, and he could not move at all. Lesser divine ability, body freezing technique. Chapter 1806. The fixed body technique was comprehended by the Dragon Phoenix true body, through the Saber Emperor's inheritance, the Sea Calming Scroll. Although the Dragon Phoenix true body had disappeared, the Dragon Phoenix primordial spirit had merged with Qinglian's primordial spirit, and she had successfully inherited this small mystical ability. The restriction of the fixed body technique was not obvious among those of the same level, and it lasted less than a breath. But for Su Zimo, this momentary pause was enough. Swoosh! A green light crashed into the front of the stage 4 mystic immortal. Su Zimo bent his knee forward, and a huge force suddenly crashed into the person's chest. The terrifying explosive force directly smashed the stage 4 mystic immortal into pieces, and his flesh and blood flew everywhere. Following that, Su Zimo directly charged into the crowd, and no mystic immortal of the wolf army could stop him. For a moment, the wolf army was in a mess, and they fell into chaos. Xia Qingying and the rest of the Wind Snow Ridge people were dumbfounded. Among the crowd, there were also some cultivators who were proficient in body refinement, but after they ascended to the upper realm, due to the lack of heaven and earth essence qi, it was extremely difficult for them to even raise their cultivation, let alone refine their flesh and blood. No one had ever seen such a powerful method. In the blink of an eye, a stage 5 and stage 4 mystic immortal of the wolf army died. This was simply a human-shaped Dharma treasure, extremely fierce, and wherever it passed, no one could withstand its sharpness. Xia Qingying also reacted at this time and hurriedly shouted, "Wind Snow Ridge Guards, attack with all your strength, and help fellow Taoists Su kill the enemy." No eldest young mistress. Just now Liang Qiu, who had been hiding in the crowd, suddenly jumped out when they were surrounded by the wolf army. Liang Qiu swallowed his saliva and said, "Eldest young mistress, don't be rash. The wolf army is ferocious and bloodthirsty, and they seek revenge for the smallest grievance. If you kill a cultivator of the wolf army, they will definitely take revenge. They've already been killed, can we still avoid it?" Xia Qingying glared at Liang Qiu. Liang Qiu hurriedly said, "They were killed by Su Zimo. He just ascended and stayed in Wind Snow Ridge for a year, so he's not considered a member of our Wind Snow Ridge. We just need to draw a line with him, we can—" "What did you say?" Xia Qingying was enraged. She looked at Liang Qiu in disbelief and shouted, "Su Zimo is from Wind Snow Ridge. You should know that if it weren't for him, just now, all of us, including you, would have died under the butcher's knife of the wolf army. Xia Qingying's words were extremely harsh and did not leave any face for Liang Qiu. Liang Qiu stammered, his face flushed. Commander Liang, aren't you betraying Guard Su like this? That's right. Imperial bodyguard Su is killing enemies at the front, yet we're hiding behind and watching with folded arms. Isn't this too disappointing? Some of the guards who had followed Liang Qiu for many years could not stand it anymore and whispered. Liang Qiu's face turned ugly. This time, he stood up and wanted to sell Su Zimo. On one hand, it was because he had a personal grudge with Su Zimo. On the other hand, he was indeed afraid of the revenge of the wolf army. Xia Qingying said solemnly, "Everyone, listen to my orders. If we can't defeat the evil wolf army this time, we will all die here. Kill." Many Wind Snow Ridge guards hollered and summoned all sorts of black-grade dermic treasures, divine powers and immortal arts, charging into the battlefield. In fact, even without the addition of Wind Snow Ridge, the wolf army was already defeated. They could not do anything to Su Zimo. Su Zimo's movement technique was extremely agile as he moved around the crowd. It was as though he possessed an indescribable spirit perception that could allow him to avoid most of the dermic treasures and divine powers. Some of the dermic treasures were about to hit that person. Out of nowhere, that person took out a handful of yellow sand that shone with a golden light and circled around him, creating an impenetrable storm. Although the yellow sand looked ordinary, their dermic treasures and divine powers could not penetrate it at all. Divine powers dissipated silently when they struck it. When dermic treasures struck it, they could not withstand the force and fell from midair. How would those bandits know that this was an utmost treasure created by the great Nine Qinglian, the Nine Heavens living soil? It was ever-changing and had shocking defensive capabilities. Almost all of them were inferior-grade black-grade dermic treasures. Even superior-grade or supreme-grade dermic treasures could not shake the Nine Heavens living soil. The ferocity in the eyes of the wolf army cultivators gradually disappeared. After a short battle, it turned into confusion and finally fear. They could not hurt Su Zimo at all. Instead, several Stage 4 Mystic Immortals were killed by Su Zimo. Even Stage 4 Mystic Immortals could not last more than 2 or 3 rounds in Su Zimo's hands. At this moment, Xia Qingying led the Wind Snow Ridge people to join the battlefield and rushed over. In fact, although Xia Qingying and the others had a large number of people, in the eyes of the wolf army, they were not as terrifying as Su Zimo. However, at this moment, the wolf army's morale had already dissipated. After being charged by the Wind Snow Ridge people, they completely collapsed and could no longer hold on. The situation is tense. Retreat. A mystic immortal from the wolf army shouted loudly. This was a slang among bandits and roving bandits, which meant that everyone should get out of here. The wolf army bandits did not even think as they rode their black-scaled demonic wolves, and quickly escaped from the battlefield, rushing into the distance. Even without the wolf army's urging, the black-scaled demonic wolves under them also ran for their lives, not even looking back. Although they were demonic beasts and were born with strong physical bodies, in the hands of that green-robed cultivator, they were so weak that they could not even withstand a single blow. The strangest thing was that this green-robed cultivator faintly emitted an aura that made their hearts tremble. Under this aura, they even had the urge to lie down on the ground. The wolf army came quickly, but they fled even faster. Like the wind, they stirred up clouds of dust and smoke as they quickly retreated and fled in all directions, leaving dozens of corpses on the ground. Su Zimo smiled coldly and was about to chase after them when Xia Qingying suddenly called out to him. "Fellow Taoist Su." Xia Qingying hurriedly ran over and said, "Forget it. Don't chase after a cornered enemy. These black-scaled demonic wolves are extremely fast. Even with my mount, the Unicorn Divine Beast's leg strength, we can't catch up with them. If even the Unicorn Divine Beast could not do it, the other mounts of everyone from Wind Snow Ridge were even worse." At that moment, they were still lying on the ground, not daring to get up. Although flying in the air was fast on Dragon Abyss Planet, it consumed too much energy, and they could no longer support themselves after flying for a short distance. "Let's hurry up and tidy up the battlefield, and leave this place lest the wolf army comes back." Xia Qingying looked at Su Zimo and asked with a questioning look in her eyes. Unknowingly, Xia Qingying had already treated Su Zimo as the commander of this operation. You guys leave first. I'll follow and take a look. Su Zimo smiled and moved, sprinting in the direction where the wolf army disappeared at a speed that did not seem fast. Hey! Xia Qingying was about to speak when Su Zimo had already left. What a hypocrite! Liang Qiu sneered. What a joke! Does he think that he can outrun the black-scaled demonic wolves with his own feet? Missy, that person is just putting on an act. You don't have to bother about him. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1807. Xia Qingying glanced at Liang Qiu coldly and ignored him. Just now, Liang Qiu's cowardice left a deep impression on her. Although Liang Qiu's talent was not bad, his cultivation level was rising rapidly, and his combat strength was considered to be in the upper echelons of Wind Snow Ridge. His courage was really not suitable to be the commander of Wind Snow Ridge's guards. At least Su Zimo was much stronger than Liang Qiu in every aspect. Xia Qingying did not say anything, but she already had a plan in her heart. When she returned to Wind Snow Ridge, she would directly remove Liang Qiu from the position of commander. Liang Qiu had suffered a loss at Xia Qingying's hands, and vaguely guessed that Xia Qingying's impression of him was probably extremely bad. Missy, what should we do now? A Wind Snow Ridge guard stepped forward and asked. Clean up the battlefield. We will return to Wind Snow Ridge immediately. Xia Qingying waved her hand and ordered. Many Wind Snow Ridge cultivators agreed and began to clean up the battlefield. In this battle, none of the Wind Snow Ridge cultivators died. At most, they only suffered some minor injuries. They had just joined the battlefield, and the wolf army had already been defeated and fled. And this time, Su Zimo had killed a total of 52 wolf army soldiers. Among them, there was also the small leader of this wolf army, a Stage 5 Mystic Immortal, and 13 Stage 4 Mystic Immortals. Many Wind Snow Ridge guards collected all the Dharma treasures and storage bags of the wolf army and handed them to Xia Qingying. These things were not a small gain for Wind Snow Ridge. One had to know that most of the Mystic Immortals in Wind Snow Ridge did not have any mystic treasures. Ta! At this moment, the ground shook violently again. Dust rose again in the distance. There was actually another army rushing towards this place. Oh no! Liang Qiu's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed. It must be the main force of the wolf army coming to take revenge. I knew it. That Su Zimo had caused big trouble. This is really bad. When the other Wind Snow Ridge guards heard this, their faces were also ashen and filled with fear. However, Xia Qingying was not in a hurry to make a judgment. A trace of confusion flashed across her eyes. I know that Su Zimo did not chase after the fleeing wolf army at all. He just escaped directly. Liang Qiu said hatefully. He knows that he has caused big trouble. That's why he escaped and left this matter to Wind Snow Ridge. It's not impossible. Yes. So. Hearing Liang Qiu's words, many Wind Snow Ridge guards began to waver. Don't speak nonsense. Xia Qingying scolded. She looked at the dust in the distance and said, the people who came shouldn't be the evil wolf army. Everyone don't panic. Moreover, even if the wolf army wanted to take revenge, it would be impossible for them to come so quickly. Almost as soon as the wolf army left, this army appeared. Moreover, this army was coming from Zuyanggu. Xia Qingying already had a vague guess in her heart. It didn't take long for everyone to see the flag waving high in the middle of the army. As expected, Xia Qingying nodded. The flag was completely black. A blood-red sun was engraved in the middle, as if it was the rising sun. It was Zuyanggu's war flag. Many Wind Snow Ridge guards heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the flag. Liang Qiu seemed to have completely forgotten what he had said just now. He smiled awkwardly and said, fortunately, it was just a false alarm. Soon, the army arrived in front of Wind Snow Ridge. There were more than 1,000 people, and they were fully equipped. The leader was a young man in silver armor. He held a silver spear in his hand. His black hair was tied up. His cheeks were thin, and his eyes were long and narrow. He gave off a sinister feeling. It's the eldest son of Zuyinga's Valley Master Chen Xianyang. He's a stage 6 mystic immortal. Liang Qiu whispered when he saw this person. It was the first time for some Wind Snow Ridge guards to see this person. They were surprised and respectful. Stage 6 mystic immortal. The Lord of Wind Snow Ridge was only a stage 6 mystic immortal. It was rumored that Zuyinga's Valley Master was a stage 8 mystic immortal. Chen Xianyang led the army here. He looked at the corpses of the wolf army not far away. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Young Master Chen, why are you here? Xia Qingying went up and greeted him with cupped fists. Chen Xianyang smiled at Xia Qingying. His eyes were bright. Qingying, I told you before that there's no need to be so distant between us. Just call me Xianyang. Many of the guards could tell that the way this eldest young master of the Blood Sun Valley looked at Xia Qingying was obviously different. There were rumors in Wind Snow Ridge that this Zuyinga's eldest son had fallen in love with their eldest daughter. However, no one dared to confirm it. Xia Qingying hesitated for a moment before nodding. Xianyang. Yes. Chen Xianyang nodded slightly and said slowly. During this period of time, my men reported that one of the 4 bandits, the Wolf Army, appeared near Zuyingu. Today is the day that Wind Snow Ridge came to Zuyingu to exchange for the core condensing pill. I was worried that something might happen to you, so I personally led the army here. At this point, Chen Xianyang looked at the dozens of corpses of the Wolf Army. His expression was cold, but there was a strange look in his eyes. I didn't expect that the Wolf Army would really find you. Chen Xianyang rode a warhorse and slowly came to Xia Qingying. He asked with concern, Qingying, are you hurt? I'm fine. Xia Qingying shook her head. Our Wind Snow Ridge's guards are fine this time. There are no casualties. Oh. A strange look flashed in Chen Xianyang's eyes. He asked curiously, the Wolf Army is ferocious and bloodthirsty, and they are powerful. I didn't expect you to be able to kill dozens of them. It really surprised me. Chen Xianyang's gaze swept across the Wind Snow Ridge's people, and he frowned slightly. That's strange. Among your guards, the highest cultivation is only you and this commander. You're only a 4th stage mystic immortal. How could you kill the 5th stage mystic immortal of the Wolf Army? Chen Xianyang asked again. Xia Qingying was about to answer when she suddenly thought of something. She asked, how did you know that person was a 5th stage mystic immortal? If a cultivator was alive, one could check the other party's cultivation with their divine consciousness. However, it was difficult to accurately check a dead person's cultivation. Chen Xianyang could accurately say that the leader of the Wolf Army was a 5th stage mystic immortal. This was really strange. Chapter 1808. Chen Xuanyang's expression did not change, and he explained naturally. Before this, Zuyinga's guards fought with the Wolf Army and lost a few guards. The rest of them returned to Zuyingu and told me that the leader of the Wolf Army was a level 5 mystic immortal. So that's how it is. Xia Qingying's expression relaxed slightly, and she nodded. Just now, an extremely terrifying guess flashed through her mind, but now it seemed that she might have been overthinking. Qingying. Chen Xianyang saw Xia Qingying frowning in deep thought and smiled. He called out softly, you haven't answered my question. According to what I know, the Wolf Army has hundreds of people. Be it in terms of numbers or combat strength, they are far superior to you. How could? The scene in front of him was indeed difficult to understand. On the battlefield, there were dozens of corpses of the Wolf Army lying everywhere. But the people of Wind Snow Ridge were almost unscathed. Xia Qingying said, it was one of my personal guards who took action and killed these evil Wolf Army bandits, leading us to push the evil Wolf Army back. Oh, Chen Xuanyang's eyes lit up, and he asked, your personal guard? Why didn't I hear Qingying mention it before? What's his cultivation? Level 5 or level 6 mystic immortal? Chen Xianyang asked a few questions in a row. Xia Qingying frowned slightly. At this moment Liang Qiu said sourly, young Master Chen, you overestimated him. He's just a level 4 mystic immortal. Level 4 mystic immortal? A cold light flashed in the depths of Chen Xuanyang's eyes. If this person was a level 4 mystic immortal, then he did not overestimate him, but underestimated him. Chen Xianyang looked deeply at Liang Qiu. He caught the dissatisfaction and jealousy in Liang Qiu's tone. Chen Xianyang cupped his fist slightly at Liang Qiu and said, "This time, Commander Liang must have played a crucial role in Wind Snow Ridge being able to defeat the wolf army." I wouldn't dare. Liang Qiu suddenly felt flattered and said hurriedly. Not to mention that Chen Xianyang was the eldest son of Zuyangu. Even if a sixth-stage mystic immortal praised him like this, it would still be a great honor. Liang Qiu coughed softly and unconsciously straightened his back. This time, we were able to defeat the wolf army because of eldest Mrs. Command. Wind and Snow Ridge work together. Naturally, it cannot be the work of one person. Chen Xianyang asked casually, "Who is this person? Why haven't I heard of him before?" "Humph," Liang Qiu said. "He's just a servant who has just ascended. He hasn't even been in Snow Wind Ridge for a year." Cough. Liang Qiu was about to continue when he was interrupted by Xia Qingying's soft cough. Xia Qingying cupped her fists at Chen Xianyang and said with a smile, "Thank you, Xianyang, for rushing over to help this time. We have to return to Snow Wind Ridge now and report this matter to Father so that he can prepare early." Chen Xianyang pondered for a while and said, "After all, many of the wolf army have escaped. If you turn back now, I won't be at ease. Qingying, follow me back to Zuyangu. With me escorting you, there won't be any more changes." Xia Qingying was a little hesitant. This time, she was going to Zuyangu to exchange for the core condensing pill. If she returned empty-handed, she was afraid that some of the medicine farmers in Snow Wind Ridge would be disappointed. However, she was also worried about Snow Wind Ridge. Chen Xianyang seemed to see Xia Qingying's worry and said with a smile, "Qingying, don't worry. I can send a fifth-stage mystic immortal under my command to Snow Wind Ridge to report that we are safe and let Snow Wind Ridge be prepared. If there are really bandits coming, he can also stay in Snow Wind Ridge to help defend against the enemy." After that, Chen Xianyang did not wait for Xia Qingying to reply. He looked to the side and said in a deep voice, "Tan Hong, go and report this matter to Snow Wind Ridge truthfully." "Yes, young master." A strong man in black clothes cupped his fists at Chen Xianyang and rode his warhorse to gallop towards Snow Wind Ridge. "Let's go, Qingying." Chen Xianyang turned slightly and made an inviting gesture. Xia Qingying frowned slightly and was still a little hesitant. She thought for a while and waved her hand to summon 2 guards from Snow Wind Ridge. She whispered, "The 2 of you stay nearby and hide carefully. If you see Guard Su return, bring him with you to Zuyangu." Xia Qingying was still worried about Su Zimo in her heart. She was not worried about Su Zimo's safety, but she thought that if Su Zimo returned here, there had to be someone to receive him. After all, Su Zimo had never been to Zuyangu. "Miss, what if Guard Su doesn't return?" One of the guards whispered. "I feel that Commander Liang's words are not without reason. Guard Su might be afraid of the wolf army's revenge and has already escaped." "Don't think too much." Xia Qingying scolded them and said in a low voice, "You guys just wait here until he comes back. If he doesn't return." Xia Qingying hesitated slightly and said, "When I return from Zuyangu, I will naturally bring the 2 of you along. The 2 of you will have to work a little harder." "Yes." The 2 guards from Snow Wind Ridge agreed. After making these arrangements, Xia Qingying turned to look at Chen Xianyang and said with a smile, "Xianyang, let's go." "Okay." Chen Xianyang nodded slightly and led the 1,000-strong army of Zuyangu to escort the 100-odd people from Snow Wind Ridge to Zuyangu. After Su Zimo left the sight of Xia Qingying and the others, he began to fly in the air. His speed increased sharply as he chased after the few escaping wolf army soldiers. Since he had already taken action this time, he would not leave any trouble for himself or Snow Wind Ridge. He had to kill all of these wolf army soldiers to prevent future troubles. Just now, under the watchful eyes of the people from Snow Wind Ridge, Su Zimo could not use his full strength. There were many methods that he did not reveal. Now that the wolf army was fleeing in all directions, he had to wait for them to gather again if he wanted to catch all of them in one fell swoop. Therefore, Su Zimo only stared at the few stage 4 mystic immortals of the wolf army and slowly followed behind them. He was not in a hurry to take action. He was sure that the wolf army must have some means of communication that could allow the escaping bandits to gather again. These stage 4 mystic immortals of the wolf army were extremely vigilant. During their escape, they changed their route several times and stopped from time to time to check their surroundings. As expected, after a long time, these few wolf army soldiers were sure that they were out of danger. Only then did they stop and take out a talisman from their storage bag. They wrote a few words on it and tore it up. This talisman shot into the sky and emitted a divine light in mid-air before quickly fading away. These stage 4 mystic immortals jumped down from the black-scaled demonic wolves. Their faces were pale, and they were panting slightly, as if they were still afraid. That person should not have chased after us, one of them said. Don't worry, no matter how fast that person is, he can't be faster than our black-scaled demonic wolves. Even if he chased after us, we would have long left him behind. Another person said. Chapter 1809. These stage 4 mystic immortals of the vicious wolf army did not notice that the person they had shaken off was rapidly approaching them, and they did not notice at all. Not to mention them, even the sharp black-scale demon wolf did not notice him at all. Su Zimo had completely concealed his aura, and what he emitted was the aura of plants. His entire body was hidden in the grass that was half the height of a person, and he moved stealthily with the swaying of the grass and trees. He was almost one with the surroundings, and there were no flaws. Su Zimo's movement technique was agile, and he quickly climbed up a huge ancient tree. Sitting on the branch, he looked down at the vicious wolf army not far away. At this distance, Su Zimo could clearly hear the conversation of these people. We've really suffered a big loss this time. A large-eared cultivator gritted his teeth and said hatefully. A bald man cursed. Damn it! Who would have thought that there would be such a troublesome person in Wind Snow Ridge? Our Bosco was directly killed by that brat. Bosco was careless. If it was a normal fight, that brat would definitely not be a match for Bosco. Another person said. The large-eared cultivator asked. What do we do now? What else can we do? Let's wait for the others to gather first. The bald man could not help but curse again. Damn it! When has our vicious wolf army suffered such a big loss? It's all the fault of Ziyang's eldest young master, Chen Xianyang. The large-eared cultivator complained. He wanted to play the hero and win the beauty's heart, and he even wanted us to put on a show with him. Now, not only did we not get any immortal herbs from Wind Snow Ridge, but we also suffered losses. Su Zimo was originally sitting on the ancient tree with a relaxed expression, and his eyes were closed. When he heard this, he suddenly opened his eyes, and a cold light flashed across them. So it's Ziyang's doing. Su Zimo sneered in his heart. It was no wonder that the evil wolf army would appear in this region. It was no wonder that Feng Shuling was intercepted by the evil wolf army on his way to Ziyangu. Another person said. In my opinion, with Chen Xuanyang's cultivation and status, and with Ziyang's strength, if he fancies that girl, he can just use force. How simple is that? The bald man sneered. Zuyangu and his son are hypocrites. They love to play dirty tricks. All these years, who knows how many forces have been schemed against by them. I heard that the reason why the 3 great powers were replaced by Zuyangu was because they fell into the Valley Master's trap. In just a short while, the scattered members of the wolf army had already arrived and met up with the large-eared cultivator, the bald man, and the others. When it was almost dusk, the cultivators of the wolf army, who had fled in all directions, had all gathered. The bald man counted and his face darkened. He said with hatred, Motherf **Ker, including Bosco, we've lost 52 brothers. We can't just let this go. That's right. We'll make Feng Shuling pay with his blood. Our wolf army will turn Feng Shuling into a river of blood and kill every single one of them. Many members of the wolf army shouted with murderous intent. The bald man said in a deep voice, Everyone, don't be anxious. I heard that the territorial lord of Feng Shuling has some tricks up his sleeves. He's a level 6 mystic immortal. Given our strength, it's difficult for us to fight against him. I reckon that we'll have to ask one of the leaders of our wolf army to take action if we want to destroy Feng Shuling. Let's not delay any longer. Let's head back now. The larger cultivator said. Since there's no time to lose, how about I send you guys off? Right then, a voice sounded from the chaotic crowd. It was clearly out of place with the surrounding clamor. The bald man's expression changed. He looked around and shouted, "Who is it? Who is the one who spoke?" "It's me." Su Zimo's figure flashed and floated down from the ancient tree. He stood quietly in midair as his blood chi surged, and his eyes shone with a divine light. This time round, since Su Zimo wanted to kill all of them, he did not hide the bloodline of Qinglian's true body. "It's him. When did that person catch up?" The expressions of many cultivators of the wolf army changed starkly as they exclaimed. The bald cultivator felt his limbs turn cold. However, he could still maintain his composure and shouted, "Brothers, don't panic. Let's join forces and fight against this person again. I don't believe that more than 400 of us can't defeat him alone." Over the years, the hands of the wolf army were stained with blood, and all of them were bloodthirsty people. When they heard that, the eyes of the wolf army revealed a ferocious glint as they took out their Dharma treasures and activated their mystic skills to release a series of ferocious attacks. Swoosh! Su Zimo's figure flashed as he released heavenly mystic skills, earth-warping golden light, and other mystic skills. His speed was shockingly fast, and he dodged most of the Dharma treasures. Before the remaining Dharma treasures could hit him, he waved his sleeves and a handful of yellow sand appeared, devouring the dozens of incoming Dharma treasures instantly. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Ever since he obtained the 9 Heavens living soil, he had only used it for defense, and had never used it for offense. Right now, the 9 Heavens living soil was wrapped around dozens of inferior-grade Dharma treasures, and Su Zimo's spirit consciousness seemed to be fused with every single grain of the 9 Heavens living soil. With a single thought, the 9 Heavens living soil shone with a golden light, and the yellow sand surged. Every single grain of yellow sand released a powerful force that exerted force against each other at the same time. The dozens of Dharma treasures were ground into scraps by the 9 Heavens living soil and scattered down from midair. Psst! Seeing this scene, the wolf army sucked in a breath of cold air. Not to mention them, even Su Zimo was shocked. The 9 Heavens living soil was peerless in defense. He never expected that it could release such terrifying lethality when used for offense as well. Furthermore, this was a profound Dharma treasure. If any living being were to fall into it, they would probably be ground into nothingness by the yellow sand. With that thought in mind, Su Zimo controlled the 9 Heavens living soil and swept the dozens of black-scaled fiend wolves into it. Alo! The black-scaled fiend wolves only had time to let out a miserable cry before they were crushed by the yellow sand and turned into a mist of blood. All of them perished. Even those hard scales could not withstand the friction of the yellow sand. The 9 Heavens living soil was extremely extraordinary. After killing the dozens of black-scaled fiend wolves, there was not a single drop of blood on the yellow sand, and it was still shining with a golden light. Run for your lives! When the wolf army saw that, their spirits collapsed once more as they shouted and fled in all directions. Humph! Su Zimo stood in the air with a gaze that was like lightning as he said indifferently, "It's rare for us to gather together. Don't leave." He formed sword seals with both hands and pointed forward. Chi! 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 Countless strands of sword chi suddenly descended from the sky. It was a vast expanse of white and poured down like a torrential rain, enveloping the wolf army. End of chapter. Chapter 1810. The heaven-slaying sword art was a top-grade immortal art of the upper world to begin with. It was only because of other reasons that it ended up in the lower world. It was only when this sword art was truly released with heaven-earth essence chi that its terrifying might was revealed. The sword chi was as dense as rain and sharp as a thunderclap. Descending from the skies, it enveloped more than 400 members of the evil wolf army. None of them were spared. Poof! 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 The sword chi pierced through the bodies of the evil wolf army and let out a series of horrifying sounds. It was as though a sharp blade had pierced through flesh cleanly. Most of the evil wolf army were Grade 3 Mystic Immortals. Even a body-tempering Grade 3 Mystic Immortal could not defend against the sharpness of the heaven-slaying sword chi with their bodies. Not to mention them, even the demonic wolves with hard scales were mostly annihilated by the rain-like sword energy. Actually, almost all the living beings and cultivators on the Dragon Abyss planet ascended from the lower world and had limited knowledge. They did not recognize creation Qinglian at all, much less the heaven-slaying sword chi. By the time the bandits realized that they could not defend against the sword chi of the person before them, it was already too late. For the evil wolf army, such a ferocious attack was absolutely destructive. Almost the moment the heaven-slaying sword chi descended, more than half of the evil wolf army were pierced by the sword chi and died on the spot. The sword rain descended and landed on the ground, creating a white mist. However, the white mist was soon dyed red by the splattering blood. Only a small number of Grade 4 Mystic Immortals managed to hold on with their Dharma treasures, armors, divine powers and immortal arts, wanting to charge out of the range of the heaven-slaying sword chi. Su Zimel looked down from above and sneered. Closing his fingers, he conjured another sword art and slashed forward. A shuddering killing intent burst forth and the ground quaked. Dragons and snakes rose from the ground when the earth released its killing intent. Initially, the earth-slaying sword art was only comprehended by Wu Dao's true body. However, Wu Dao's true body cultivated divine powers and did not rely on this sword art. He rarely released it as well. The greatest power of this sword art could only be unleashed on Qinglian's true body. Therefore, before ascending, Wu Dao's original body imparted the earth-killing sword art to Qinglian's true body. Roar! Hiss! Suddenly, a huge five-clawed divine dragon descended from the sky. It was filled with piercingly cold killing intent, and its entire body was condensed from sword chi. The ground cracked open as a soaring snake bathed in boiling lava soared into the sky. Its entire body was burning with flames as it raised its head and hissed. Su Zimel condensed a sword art and slashed forward, directly slashing out a dragon snake. Looking at the two terrifying divine beasts, the remaining soldiers of the wolf army were ashen. Their eyes were filled with despair. Divine dragon and soaring serpent circled around the vicious wolf army and began a massacre, hunting down some of the vicious wolf army soldiers who were lucky enough to escape from the celestial slaughter sword rain. Ah! 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 Shrill screams rose and fell one after another. The remaining wolf army had already been severely injured by the heaven-slaying sword chi, and now that they were being chased by the divine dragon and soaring serpent, they were practically powerless to retaliate. The sword rain poured down and a blood mist spread. The two divine beasts, soaring serpent, rampaged through the sword rain. Amidst the misty rain, a green-robed man stood in midair with a calm expression with one hand behind his back. This scene was like a painting, making people feel that it was somewhat unreal. After about half an instance's time, there was no more sound on the battlefield. The rain stopped and the divine beasts dissipated, leaving only corpses all over the ground, including more than 400 black-scaled fiend wolves. The remaining vicious wolf army were all dead without a single survivor. Su Zimel heaved a sigh of relief and released his spirit consciousness, collecting all the dermic treasures of the vicious wolf army. Although he could not use those dermic treasures, they seemed to be of considerable value on Dragon Abyss planet. Su Zimel collected all the storage bags of the vicious wolf army and opened them to take a look. Almost all of those storage bags were filled with essence-nurturing herbs, rain flowers and mini essence condensation pills. On the Dragon Abyss star, these were all extremely precious cultivation resources. Su Zimel gathered all the immortal herbs and essence condensation pills in the storage bags and did a rough count. This time he obtained more than 1 million stalks of essence-nurturing herbs and rain flowers, and more than 13,000 essence condensation pills. According to the exchange standard of Zhuanggu, more than 2 million stalks of immortal herbs were equivalent to more than 20,000 essence condensation pills. In other words, Su Zimel obtained a total of more than 30,000 essence condensation pills from killing the vicious wolf army. If he were to include the dozens of vicious wolf army members he killed previously, The number of essence condensation pills he obtained would most likely reach 40,000. This was not a small windfall. In the entire Snow Wind Ridge, only 100,000 stalks of immortal herbs were collected in 10 years, which could be exchanged for 1,000 essence condensation pills. However, Su Zimo obtained 40,000 pills in one go this time round. Su Zimo looked at the corpses all over the ground and shook his head slightly. It was no wonder why some of the cultivators and living beings who ascended would choose to join these bandits to kill and loot. This method was indeed much faster than obediently planting immortal herbs. At that moment, the sky gradually darkened. Su Zimo prepared to leave and meet up with Xia Qingying and the others from Snow Wind Ridge. Just as he moved, he seemed to have thought of something and turned back to look at the corpses of the vicious wolf army, deep in thought. Zuyanggu. In a tall and imposing hall, Chen Xianyang took off his armor and sat in the middle of the hall in a brocade robe. On his left were some Zuyanggu cultivators. On his right were Xia Qingying and Liang Qiu. The other cultivators from Snow Wind Ridge had also been settled down. At that moment, night gradually fell. The hall was brightly lit. On the table in front of Xia Qingying and the others were many spirit fruits and wine, as well as some delicious delicacies cooked with the flesh of demonic beasts. Every time the people from Snow Wind Ridge came to Zuyanggu to exchange for essence condensation pills, they would stay here for a night. That was because it was already evening when they arrived in Zuyanggu. If they rushed back to Snow Wind Ridge overnight, it was easy for some accidents to happen. And every time, Chen Xianyang would set up a banquet in Zuyanggu to welcome Xia Qingying. This time, Snow Wind Ridge had defeated a great enemy, so the banquet prepared by Zuyanggu was even more sumptuous. However, Xia Qingying sat at the table with her brows slightly furrowed. She barely touched her chopsticks and was a little absent-minded. Liang Qiu, who was beside her, was eating heartily without a care. From time to time, he would raise his head and look at Chen Xianyang with a strange expression. Xia Qingying had other thoughts and did not notice this scene. After a long time, he smiled slightly and said, "Qingying, do you have something on your mind? This time Snow Wind Ridge survived a disaster. You should be happy. Why are you still frowning?" Xia Qingying forced a smile and did not reply. She looked at the sky outside and sighed in her heart. Chen Xianyang suddenly asked, "Qingying, are you still thinking about that person?" Xia Qingying was silent for a while before she mustered her courage and said, "Xianyang, I know that this request is a little overboard, but I still want to ask if Zuyanggu can lead some people to help my guards." Chapter 18:11. Chen Xianyang put down his wine glass. His expression did not change as he asked, "Qingying, he's just a guard, a rank 4 mystic immortal. Why are you so worried about him?" "No," Xia Qingying said. "It's all because of him that everyone in Snow Wind Ridge survived this time. If, Missy," at this moment Liang Qiu suddenly said, "have you never doubted his identity?" "Doubted what?" Xia Qingying was slightly stunned. Liang Qiu said in a deep voice, "This person's background is unknown. He said that he came from the lower realm, but when he ascended, his cultivation was already a rank 4 mystic immortal. This is because he passed the 49 heavenly tribulations." Xia Qingying explained. "Haha," Liang Qiu sneered and said, "Missy, do you really believe his nonsense? If he passed the 49 heavenly tribulations, it's impossible for him to descend on Dragon Abyss planet. He said that there was an accident, but he did not explain in detail, because he has no way to explain it. What kind of accident could happen during the tribulation?" Chen Xianyang looked at this scene with a smile in his eyes, but he was not in a hurry to speak. Xia Qingying frowned and fell into deep thought. Liang Qiu subconsciously looked at Chen Xianyang. Chen Xianyang nodded slightly, indicating for him to continue. Liang Qiu was shocked and said, "Missy, think about it again. He's a rank 4 mystic immortal, but he wants to hide his cultivation and come to Snow Wind Ridge for? It's only a day's journey from Snow Wind Ridge to Zuyanggu today, but we encountered the wolf army. How can this be a coincidence? Someone must have tipped him off. This person is Su Zimo. He's the spy of the wolf army." Hearing this, Chen Xianyang said, Commander Liang's words make some sense. Qingying, you can't judge a book by its cover. This person has only been in Snow Wind Ridge for a year. He's really not worthy of your trust. No. Xia Qingying shook her head and said, You said that Guard Su is a spy. How is that possible? He killed the leader of the wolf army and forced them to retreat. Everyone saw this with their own eyes. Eldest miss, this is obviously a ruse. Liang Qiu argued forcefully. Su Zimo must have a bigger plan. It's very likely that he's plotting to take over the entire Wind Snow Ridge. Furthermore, it was because of this that he was able to gain the trust of the first young lady. Xia Qingying shook her head slightly, still in disbelief. Liang Qiu continued. Eldest miss, think about it. If you don't control the demon beast, how can you catch up with the black scale fiend wolf? But this Su Zimo chased after him. This time, he is definitely not going to hunt down the vicious wolf army. Instead, he is going to discuss an even bigger scheme with the remaining vicious wolf army members. What scheme? Tell me about it. At this moment, a voice came from outside the hall. 3 people walked towards the main hall. The one in the middle was dressed in a green robe and had delicate features. It was Su Zimo. The 2 people beside him were the guards of Wind Snow Ridge, who were standing guard in the distance. One of the guards smiled at Xia Qingying. Missy, bodyguard Su is back. When Xia Qingying saw that Su Zimo had returned, her eyes lit up and she was overjoyed as she stood up to welcome him. A hint of gloom flashed through the depths of Chen Xuanyang's eyes. Bodyguard Su, are you all right? Xia Qingying's gaze circled around Su Zimo as she asked worriedly. Su Zimo smiled gently. Thank you for your concern, Missy. I'm fine. Chen Xuanyang's gaze turned towards Liang Qiu, who was at the table. Liang Qiu understood, and suddenly slammed the table and stood up. He pointed at Su Zimo and shouted, Su Zimo, how dare you come back? If I didn't come back, I'm afraid I would be labeled as a spy. Su Zimo scoffed coldly. Xia Qingying turned around and stared at Liang Qiu with a frown. Liang Qiu stopped talking. Bodyguard Su can't be a spy. I believe him. Qingying. Right then, Chen Xinyang stood up slowly and came closer. He glanced at Su Zimo and said, I think that Commander Liang's words are not without reason. One must be wary of others. This person just arrived at Snow Wind Ridge, and the evil wolf army appeared nearby. The 2 might be related. Su Zimo looked at Chen Xinyang with a faint smile, and did not say a word. He could sense that there were many experts hidden in the surroundings of this great hall. Apart from rank 5 mystic immortals, there were also a few rank 6 mystic immortals. Furthermore, this Chen Xinyang in front of him was a rank 6 mystic immortal expert. Normally speaking, with Su Zimo's cultivation realm, it was impossible for him to investigate the surrounding situation so clearly. However, Su Zimo's essence spirit was formed by the fusion of the Dragon Phoenix essence spirit and Qinglian's essence spirit. It had already undergone an astonishing transformation. His essence spirit realm had far surpassed his cultivation realm, and had already reached the rank 6 mystic immortal realm. Of course, Su Zimo was in Zuyanga now. Even if he knew that Chen Xinyang was behind today's incident, he could not fall out with Chen Xinyang openly. As one of the 8 major forces of Dragon Abyss planet, Zuyanga was filled with hidden talents. If he were to fall out with Zuyanga today, even he might not be able to leave alive, let alone the people of Snow Wind Ridge. Liang Qiu pretended to ask, Young Master Chen, in your opinion, how should we deal with Su Zimo? In my opinion, we should kill him directly to prevent future trouble. No. Xia Qingying's expression was cold as she rejected flatly. She stared at Liang Qiu with an unfriendly expression. She could tell that Liang Qiu was obviously using his position to take revenge. If she returned to Snow Wind Ridge this time, she would definitely punish Liang Qiu severely. Liang Qiu did not dare to look at Xia Qingying. He had long known his situation. He would probably be punished if he returned to Snow Wind Ridge this time. When he arrived in Zuyanga this time, he had already secretly looked for Chen Xinyang. That was why there was a scene at the banquet today. Chen Xinyang smiled and said, It's too arbitrary to kill him directly. In my opinion, it's better to detain this person temporarily and interrogate him to find out his background and identity before making a decision. Chen Xianyang was smiling on the surface, but his heart was already filled with killing intent. If he really detained Su Zimo, he would have the final say on how to deal with him. No. Xia Qingying still shook her head and refused. Su Zimo suddenly said, "Are you suspecting that I have something to do with the wolf army?" "That's right." Liang Qiu sneered. "Don't think that killing dozens of people from the wolf army can prove your innocence. Is that so?" Su Zimo smiled at Liang Qiu and said in a sinister tone, "I didn't kill dozens of people from the wolf army." At that point, Su Zimo paused for a moment and suddenly opened a storage bag. With his spirit consciousness, he moved everything out of the storage bag. Instantly, the entire hall was filled with blood qi. The corpses of hundreds of people from the wolf army and hundreds of black-scaled fiend wolves were all piled up in the hall, dripping with blood in a shocking manner. Every single one of them died tragically. Some were severed into two. Some of their bodies were riddled with holes from the sharp weapons. Some had their eyes wide open in death. Those people's eyes were filled with deep fear before they died. No one knew what they had experienced. Psst! Everyone in the main hall was shocked, and they sucked in a breath of cold air. End of chapter. Chapter 1812. Nothing was more convincing than these 400-odd corpses of the evil wolf army. When these bloody corpses were moved to the main hall by Su Zimo, all of Liang Qiu's suspicions and slander against him seemed vulnerable. This scene also brought about a huge shock to everyone. 500 members of the evil wolf army were completely wiped out, without a single survivor. Was this done by this weak-looking green-robed scholar in front of them? Even with Chen Xuanyang's shrewdness, his expression changed drastically. He knew in his heart that Su Zimo's move was not only to prove his innocence, but also to establish his authority. This person was telling him not to provoke him. How is this possible? Liang Qiu's confidence faltered as he forced a smile. Why, you're just a rank 4 mystic immortal. How can you kill so many members of the evil wolf army? Xia Qingying took a deep breath and calmed the shock in her heart. She looked at Liang Qiu coldly and questioned in a deep voice. Liang Qiu, what else do you have to say? Aye. Liang Qiu looked a little flustered and instinctively looked at Chen Xianyang, wanting to say something. Chen Xuanyang's expression darkened, and a murderous intent flashed through his eyes. He suddenly struck and slapped Liang Qiu's head with a backhand. Bang! Brains splattered. Liang Qiu's eyes widened in disbelief. They were extremely close to each other, and he had not expected Chen Xianyang to attack him. Instead, Chen Xianyang had gone for the kill. Not only did that palm crack his skull, it even scattered the essence spirit in his sea of consciousness. Chen Xianyang naturally would not allow Liang Qiu to reveal the collusion between the two of them. As a rank 6 mystic immortal, apart from Su Zimo, no one present could react to his attack at this distance. Su Zimo naturally would not save Liang Qiu either. Thump! Liang Qiu's corpse fell straight into a pool of blood, and his eyes were wide open even in death. Chen Xianyang, what are you doing? Xia Qingying reacted and asked loudly. Chen Xianyang retracted his hand and gently wiped it. His expression was calm as he said, Qingying, this person has ulterior motives. He actually wants to frame Imperial bodyguard Su, who has performed a meritorious service this time. He almost deceived me. I don't feel at ease leaving such a despicable person by your side. I know you're soft-hearted. Today I'll kill him for you. No matter how wrong Liang Qiu is, he is still a member of my Snow Wind Ridge. You, Xia Qingying clenched her fists slightly, her expression furious. Chen Xianyang smiled and said, Qingying, with a powerhouse like Guard Su and Snow Wind Ridge, he can replace Liang Qiu as the commander of Snow Wind Ridge. As for Liang Qiu, he deserved to die. After pausing for a moment, Chen Xuanyang's gaze turned towards Su Zimo and asked with a smile, What do you think, bodyguard Su? Others might not be able to see it, but Su Zimo's heart was as clear as a mirror. The reason why Chen Xianyang was so decisive to kill Liang Qiu in front of everyone was not only because he was worried that the latter would spout nonsense, but more importantly, it was to establish his authority. He brought out more than 400 corpses of the wolf army to intimidate everyone in Zuyanggu. This eldest young master of Zuyanggu killed Liang Qiu in front of him with a single palm strike. This eldest young master was telling Su Zimo that he could kill him as easily as killing this person. On the surface, it seemed calm between the two of them. However, there were sabers and swords behind them. They had already exchanged a move. You must be joking, young Master Chen. Faced with Chen Xuanyang's threat, Su Zimo was naturally unmoved and said indifferently, "After today, I'll be leaving Wind Snow Ridge. I truly can't take on the role of the commander of the guards." Oh, Chen Xuanyang's eyes lit up, thinking that his display of authority had worked. He nodded in satisfaction and said, "That's a pity. Fellow Taoist Su, why are you leaving?" Xia Qingying was a little anxious and did not care about the presence of others. She hurriedly asked, "Although Liang Qiu slandered you, I've never doubted you. Given the great merit you've made today, as long as we return to Wind Snow Ridge, I'll report it to my father truthfully, and he'll definitely reward you handsomely. With your capabilities, you're also qualified to take on the role of the commander of the guards." "That's right," a Wind Snow Ridge guard at the side said. "Guard Su, although you've only been in Wind Snow Ridge for a short period of time, you've saved everyone this time. We're all convinced by you." Su Zimo shook his head slightly and said, "I'm used to being lazy and don't like to be restrained. I can't take on the role of the commander of the guards. I've already disturbed everyone by staying in Wind Snow Ridge for a year. Even if today's incident did not happen, I was prepared to bid farewell to everyone and go somewhere else." Xia Qingying frowned and said, "But it's not safe outside Dragon Abyss Planet. You're alone." "Eldest young mistress, I've made up my mind," Su Zimo said indifferently. Since he had already said so, Xia Qingying could no longer persuade him, and could only sigh softly in her heart. Actually, the most important reason why Su Zimo wanted to leave this time was because he had killed 500 members of the Wolf Army and had become enemies with the Wolf Army. Normally speaking, if all the members of the Wolf Army were dead, the other members of the Wolf Army would not know who did it. However, the Wolf Army and Zuyangu were obviously in cahoots. This matter could not be hidden at all. If he continued to stay in Wind Snow Ridge, he would bring a disaster to Wind Snow Ridge. At least with his current cultivation, he was still unable to fight against Zuyangu and one of the 4 great bandits, the Wolf Army. Thus he could only choose to leave. Chen Xinyang patted Xia Qingying's shoulder lightly and comforted her softly. "Qingying, everyone has their own aspirations and cannot be forced. If Wind Snow Ridge lacks manpower, I can send some strong practitioners over." "That's not necessary. Thank you, young Master Chen." Xia Qingying shook her head. Unknowingly, the way she addressed Chen Xinyang had changed, and there was more distance between them. Chen Xinyang did not mind. He waved his hand and said, "Men, clean up the corpses of the Wolf Army. The banquet will continue." "Young Master Chen, I'm a little tired. I'll go and rest first," Xia Qingying said, then looked at Su Zimo and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, follow me. I have something to tell you." Su Zimo nodded and followed her. Chen Xinyang looked at the two of them as they left, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he chuckled. Not long after, the two of them had already arrived at the resting area of Wind Snow Ridge. Xia Qingying bit her lips lightly and suddenly raised her head. "Fellow Taoist Su, I know that you chose to leave because you are worried that you will implicate Wind Snow Ridge." Su Zimo was slightly stunned, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. He did not expect that this young miss of Wind Snow Ridge would be able to see through his intentions so quickly. Su Zimo did not say anything, which was a tacit agreement. Xia Qingying said, "Actually, you don't have to do this at all. I'll go back and report today's matter to my father. We can definitely plan for the long term and make preparations in advance to discuss a foolproof plan to deal with the Wolf Army." Although Xia Qingying said that, she also knew that if the Wolf Army really launched a large-scale attack, Wind Snow Ridge would definitely be destroyed. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 1813. To be fair, Su Zimo was only a rank 4 mystic immortal. To Feng Shuiling, he was not considered to be the strongest. The overlord of Feng Shuiling was a rank 6 mystic immortal, and the protectors under him were rank 5 mystic immortals. But for some reason, Xia Qingying had an inexplicable feeling in her heart, like a sixth sense, that this green-robed man was very important to her in feng shuiling. Very important. If this person left, it would be a huge loss to feng shuiling. That was why she wanted to keep Su Zimo as much as possible. Su Zimo only shook his head slightly. Seeing that Su Zimo was determined to leave, Xia Qingying could only sigh. The two of them stood facing each other, and were silent for a while. Xia Qingying seemed to have thought of something, and took out a storage bag. She handed it to Su Zimo and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, the storage bags of the dozens of wolf army soldiers that you killed are all inside. You can keep them." Su Zimo thought about it, and did not refuse. Actually, even if Xia Qingying kept these storage bags for herself, he would not think too much about it. He was leaving, because he wanted to leave something for feng shuiling. Su Zimo took the storage bag, and checked it with his divine perception. The things in these storage bags were not much different from the storage bags of the other wolf army soldiers. They were all Dharma treasures, immortal herbs and essence condensation pills. Su Zimo kept the immortal herbs and essence condensation pills. He was about to return the remaining Dharma treasures and weapons to Xia Qingying, when he suddenly had a thought. Just now, his palm accidentally touched a storage bag. The bronze square cauldron that was originally quiet and motionless in his sea of consciousness actually vibrated strangely. Su Zimo frowned slightly and picked up the storage bag to examine it. "This is the storage bag of that small leader," Xia Qingying said. Su Zimo nodded and kept this storage bag. Then, he stuffed all the Dharma treasures he collected from the wolf army into a storage bag and handed it to Xia Qingying. "Fellow Taoist Su, what are you doing?" Xia Qingying was at a loss. More than 500 profound rank magic treasures. Although they were all mystic low-grade weapons, it was still an unimaginable amount of wealth to feng shuiling. One had to know that more than half of the profound immortals in the Snow Wind Ridge did not have a profound rank magic treasure. Even the guards of Snow Wind Ridge only had a little more than 100 people with Dharma treasures. If feng shuiling could get his hands on these magical equipment, his overall strength would rise to a whole new level. "Take it." Su Zimo smiled. These profound rank magic treasures were practically useless to him. His 9th grade Qinglian true body completely destroyed a low-grade profound rank Dharma treasure. This is too precious. Xia Qingying still could not believe it, and did not dare to accept it. Su Zimo smiled and said, "This is what you deserve. Don't forget, when I first arrived on the Dragon Abyss planet, you gave me a bottle of healing pills and a dust removal talisman." Xia Qingying's eyes reddened slightly. She didn't expect that Su Zimo would still remember her small action back then. Moreover, he even gave her such a huge return. In terms of value, any low-grade profound rank Dharma treasure was enough to exchange for hundreds of thousands of bottles of those pills and dust removal talismans. Su Zimo spread out his divine sense and carefully checked the surroundings. After not noticing anyone spying on them, he said, "Don't worry. Although I've left Snow Wind Ridge, I won't be able to leave the Dragon Abyss planet in a short period of time. Keep this message talisman well. If anything dangerous happens to Snow Wind Ridge, tear this talisman, and I'll know." Su Zimo took out a message talisman from his storage bag and handed it to Xia Qingying. "Okay." Xia Qingying pursed her lips slightly as a hint of reluctance flashed across her eyes. She said, "Brother Su, you have to take care too." Su Zimo waved his hand casually and was about to turn and leave when he suddenly paused and said in a low voice, "I have to remind you of something. Be careful of Chen Xianyang." It was not good for him to say that Chen Xianyang colluded with the wolf army. After all, he did not have any evidence. Even if he said it, it would only be a one-sided story. He could only remind Xia Qingying. "Okay." Xia Qingying nodded. Su Zimo saw that Xia Qingying's expression was normal, as if she had expected it. He could not help but be slightly surprised and asked, "You already knew?" "I was just suspecting it before," Xia Qingying said. Xia Qingying said, "Chen Xianyang appeared not long after you left. This is too much of a coincidence. Also, you were so determined to leave. It seems that you are sure that the wolf army knows about this." 500 wolf army soldiers are all dead. The only one who can leak the news is Zhuanggu. Su Zimo nodded slightly as a hint of praise flashed across his eyes. The woman in front of him was very smart. She could actually detect something amiss from the clues. It was really rare. What was even rarer was that Xia Qingying had already suspected Chen Xinyang. But she did not show it, and did not show it. If Xia Qingying really fell out with Chen Xinyang and Zhuanggu, she would probably be in trouble immediately, and Feng Shuling would also not be able to survive. If Xia Qingying did not point it out, Chen Xinyang would continue to be complacent, and continue to pretend. Brother Su, when are you planning to leave? Xia Qingying asked. Do you want to leave with us tomorrow? Xia Qingying was worried that Zhuanggu, or rather Chen Xinyang, would harm Su Zimo. After all, today's matter was because of Su Zimo's appearance that Chen Xuanyang's plan was ruined. However, if Su Zimo left with Feng Shuling's group, Chen Xinyang would not be able to make a move openly. We'll see. Su Zimo replied ambiguously. After a pause, Su Zimo continued. I might go to Feng Shuling to take someone away. I hope you can agree. No problem. Xia Qingying nodded without hesitation. Su Zimo turned around and left, waving at Xia Qingying with his back facing her. Xia Qingying watched as Su Zimo entered a room before leaving reluctantly. Late at night, Su Zimo did not rest. After returning to his room, he directly took out the storage bag of the leader. He was very curious about what was in this storage bag that could cause the bronze square cauldron to react. He spread out his divine consciousness and forcefully erased the divine consciousness imprint on the storage bag before opening it to take a look. There were no immortal herbs in this storage bag, but there were about 10,000 essence condensation pills, which was almost equivalent to the total number of spirit pills carried by the other members of the wolf army. Su Zimo kept these essence condensation pills and continued to check. Apart from the essence condensation pills, there were also a few profound-grade Dharma treasures in the storage bag. The best one was only a mid-grade profound-grade Dharma treasure. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Even if it was a mid-grade profound-grade Dharma treasure, it would not catch his eye. Right then, Su Zimo's gaze shifted and he exclaimed softly. In the corner of the storage bag, he saw a gray broken sword. The broken sword was dull and did not have any sharpness. The broken sword was filled with cracks and was clearly a piece of trash. However, when Su Zimo picked up the broken sword, the bronze square cauldron vibrated once more. End of chapter. Chapter 1814. Su Zimo examined the broken sword carefully with his spirit consciousness, but could not find anything special about it. He pondered for a moment, and threw the broken sword into the bronze square tripod. The interior of the bronze square tripod became boiling hot once more, emitting an extremely terrifying power as it began to smelt the broken sword. The entire process was done by the bronze square tripod on its own. After about an hour, the broken sword was completely refined by the bronze square tripod, turning into a dark gray liquid. The bronze square tripod began to absorb the power of the broken sword. Su Zimo focused his gaze. The other shattered tripod walls of the bronze square tripod did not show any signs of recovery. The power of the broken sword was still flowing towards the intact tripod wall with the divine dragon. All of a sudden, the divine dragon on the outer wall of the bronze square tripod suddenly opened its eyes. The man and dragon looked at each other. A divine light seemed to burst out from the eyes of the divine dragon and entered Su Zimo's eyes. Su Zimo shuddered. In the next moment, a secret technique appeared in his mind. 9 true dragon flashes? Su Zimo muttered subconsciously. The true body of the dragon phoenix had browsed through many ancient books of dragons in the Dragon Bone Valley of Tianhuang mainland, but he had never seen a similar secret technique. This was clearly a secret technique of the dragons of the upper realm. Strange, the inner wall of this bronze square tripod has Sanskrit of the Buddhist cultivation technique, but the outer wall has the secret technique of the dragons. Su Zimo was increasingly curious about the origin of the bronze square tripod. However, at that moment, he did not have the mood to think about it. He immediately memorized the secret technique of the 9 true dragon flashes and comprehended it bit by bit. After about 4 hours, Su Zimo finally let out a long breath. This secret technique of the dragons was extremely mysterious and complicated. If a real human or other person were to cultivate it, they might need decades, or even centuries to comprehend it. However, Su Zimo's essence spirit had the dragon phoenix essence spirit. Comprehending this secret technique of the dragons was twice the result with half the effort. In just 4 hours, he had already comprehended something. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and released the secret skill. With a flash, he vanished from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already outside the room. Su Zimo's eyes flashed with joy. This secret technique should be a top-notch movement technique of the dragons, with a total of 9 levels. Once it was released, it would produce an effect similar to teleportation, disappearing from one's original location and blinking to another location. Of course, the distance of the flicker wouldn't be too far. Teleportation was a peerless ability. In the upper realm, in order to unleash a peerless divine ability, one's cultivation base had to be at the divine origin stage, which was the legendary divine immortal. As for the 9 true dragon flashes, just by cultivating to the first level, one would be able to derive a movement technique that was similar to teleportation. If he could cultivate to the second level, he would be able to flash twice in a row. If he could cultivate it to the peak, he would be able to flash 9 times in a row. Su Zimo had fought countless battles in Tianhuang mainland. He knew very well what this identity meant for him in battle. On the ever-changing battlefield, possessing such a strange and unpredictable movement technique would allow one to have absolute control over the situation. After 4 hours of cultivation, Su Zimo had already cultivated to the first level. Su Zimo gazed at the bronze square tripod and fell into deep thought. At that moment, the divine dragon on the outer wall of the bronze square tripod closed its eyes once more. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra was incomplete. If Su Zimo was not wrong, there was a high chance that there were remaining Sanskrit engraved on the other 3 inner walls. Did that mean that there would be 3 different secret skills on the other 3 outer walls of the bronze square tripod as well? What sort of changes would occur if he repaired the bronze square tripod completely? Ever since he transcended the tribulation and ascended, Su Zimo had a feeling that the bronze square tripod seemed to possess its own sentience, as though it was a living being. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. As though he sensed something, he put away the bronze square tripod and turned to look at the darkness in the distance with a bright gaze. Before long, a figure walked out slowly from the darkness and approached. It was the eldest young master of Zuyanggu, Chen Xianyang. "Brother Su, you have sharp senses." Chen Xianyang smiled gently and nodded to Su Zimo, praising him. Su Zimo did not fall for it at all and asked with a calm expression, "Young Master Chen, why are you here so late at night?" Chen Xianyang smiled. "During the banquet, I heard that Brother Su wants to leave Snow Wind Ridge. I love making friends the most in my life. If Brother Su doesn't have a place to go, why don't you come to Zuyanggu? Although you're a grade 4 mystic immortal, your status in Zuyanggu will definitely not be weaker than a grade 5 mystic immortal." "Young Master Chen thinks too highly of me," Su Zimo said faintly. "However, I'm a lazy person and don't like to be restrained. I'm afraid I can't stay in Zuyanggu." Chen Xianyang laughed and said, "It's fine. Since Brother Su is unwilling, I won't force you. However, the door of Zuyanggu will always be open for Brother Su. As long as you're willing, you can come back at any time." Su Zimo looked indifferent and did not say a word. He did not even bother to reply. Chen Xuanyang's expression was the same as usual. He smiled and nodded before turning to leave. The moment he turned around, his face had already turned gloomy. As the eldest young master of Zuyanggu, and a grade 6 mystic immortal, he had personally invited a grade 4 mystic immortal. It could be said that he was giving Su Zimo enough face. He did not expect this person to be so tactless. The moment Su Zimo rejected him, Chen Xianyang was already enraged. However, due to his shrewdness, he did not show it. Chen Xianyang left Su Zimo's residence and walked towards his own bedroom. He didn't walk far before a faint shadow appeared in the darkness behind him. "Young master, how should we deal with this person?" the shadow asked in a low voice. Chen Xinyang stopped in his tracks. His eyes were cold and emitted a murderous aura. He said slowly, "This person has some tricks up his sleeves. He's smart and brave. If he can't be used by me, I can only kill him." "Understood," the shadow replied. Chen Xinyang said, "Keep a close eye on him. Only attack when he goes out alone. Don't let Qing Ying and the people from Feng Shuiling see him." After pausing for a while, Chen Xinyang said, "Also bring a few more people with you. Don't make any mistakes. This person can destroy hundreds of the wolf army and kill Bosco. He must have some tricks up his sleeves." "Don't worry, young master," the shadow said. "I've heard from Liang Qiu that this person killed Bosco by surprise. If it's a head-on fight, this person definitely won't be able to kill a grade 5 mystic immortal. You may leave." Chen Xinyang waved his hand. The shadow gradually disappeared in the night. In the vast night, outside Su Zimo's room, a few more shadows gradually appeared. They were like ghosts in the night, difficult to detect. In the room, Su Zimo slowly opened his eyes. A cold light flashed across his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he murmured, "They're here." End of chapter. Chapter 1815. In fact, when Su Zimo was talking to Chen Xianyang, his spiritual sense had already sensed Chen Xuanyang's killing intent. He did not expect Chen Xianyang to move so quickly. Of course, this was Zuyangu. Xia Qingying and the others from Feng Shuiling were still living nearby. Chen Xianyang wanted to maintain his image and would not make a move here. These people who were hiding here were probably here to keep an eye on him. These people were very far away and seemed to be well hidden, but they could not hide from Su Zimo's perception. One had to know that Su Zimo's primordial spirit had already reached the level of a stage 6 mystic immortal. Even if he did not use his divine sense, his spiritual sense, including his powerful 5 senses, could sense the abnormalities around him. Su Zimo sneered slightly. After thinking for a while, he floated down from the bed. Since these people were in Zuyangu and could not make a move, he would create an opportunity for them to make a move. The shadow was Chen Xuanyang's personal guard, a stage 5 mystic immortal. He had ascended 20,000 years ago and almost died in the chaotic world outside. He was saved by Chen Xianyang and survived. His life was given to him by Chen Xianyang. From that day onwards, he followed Chen Xianyang and became Chen Xuanyang's shadow. All these years, he had helped Chen Xianyang kill countless people. He was very familiar with this kind of thing. The person he wanted to kill this time was a little special. Although he was a stage 4 mystic immortal, he seemed to have some tricks up his sleeve. He did not dare to be careless. In order to completely kill this person without any accidents, he brought 6 stage 5 mystic immortals. Including him, there were 7 stage 5 mystic immortals. 7 stage 5 mystic immortals besieging a stage 4 mystic immortal. This was not a small lineup. "Boss, he's out." A cultivator beside the shadow sent a message with his divine sense. The shadow narrowed his eyes slightly and looked over. The cyan-robed cultivator pushed open the door and identified the direction. Then, he quietly left without alerting anyone. It was as though he wanted to leave quietly. "Boss, this person probably wants to leave by himself without alerting the people of Wind Snow Ridge." A Zuyanga cultivator transmitted his voice. Another person said, "Boss, should we follow them?" The shadow sneered and transmitted his voice. "This is a rare opportunity. Tonight, we'll send this brat on his way. Everyone be careful. Don't let him discover you." "Understood." The other 6 Zuyanga stage 5 mystic immortals replied. The 7 shadows hid in the darkness and watched Su Zimo from afar. They followed behind him, and before long, they were out of Zuyangu. Su Zimo gradually increased his speed. The 7 shadows followed closely behind. The shadow sneered. The entire process had been extremely smooth. The person in front of him hadn't noticed anything at all. They were gradually getting away from Zuyangu. Even if there was a big commotion here, it wouldn't alert the people of Zuyangu. Only then did the shadow signal the others. The remaining 6 people understood and spread out, surrounding the figure in front of them. The shadow also approached quietly. At this moment, the figure in front of them gradually slowed down. In the end, he actually stopped. Then the person turned around. His eyes were like torches, unusually bright in the dark night. He was actually looking directly at the shadow. The shadow was slightly stunned. He had been discovered. Since he had been exposed, the shadow no longer hid. With a mocking expression, he walked out of the darkness and stared coldly at Su Zimo, who was not far away. "It's too late for you to realize it now," the shadow sneered. As soon as his voice fell, 6 figures gradually appeared not far from Su Zimo, completely blocking his way. 7 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals surrounded Su Zimo. This was supposed to be a sure kill. But for some reason, the shadow suddenly felt uneasy. This person who had been surrounded and couldn't escape seemed to be too calm. In Su Zimo's eyes, the shadow couldn't see any panic or fear. It was as if this person had already known everything in front of him. The shadow suddenly thought of a terrifying speculation. Could it be that this person had already noticed their tracks and deliberately came here to lure them? At this moment, Su Zimo smiled and said, "It's too late for you to realize it now." As soon as his voice fell, Su Zimo's figure suddenly retreated. His body was filled with a magical power, and his speed was astonishing. Heaven's feet and Earth's vertical golden light burst out at the same time. The Stage 5 Mystic Immortal behind Su Zimo didn't have time to react. He felt a figure flash in front of him, and Su Zimo directly crashed into him. Crack! Crack! The horrifying sound of bones cracking was heard. The Stage 5 Mystic Immortal's chest caved in deeply. Poof! The next moment, a bloody hole appeared between his eyebrows. His primordial spirit was destroyed, and he died on the spot. At this point, this person's eyes were wide open, and there was disbelief in his eyes. Attack! The shadow reacted immediately and screamed. Even if he realized that Su Zimo had deliberately lured them here, he still had to attack. He didn't believe that the remaining 6 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals couldn't kill a Stage 4 Mystic Immortal. Kill! Su Zimo's figure rushed forward again, leaving behind a series of afterimages. He arrived in front of a Stage 5 Mystic Immortal and suddenly shouted, "Thunderclap kill!" At such a close distance, the sound domain's secret technique unleashed was extremely destructive. This Stage 5 Mystic Immortal's Dharma treasure had just been used, and his magical power had just been condensed. When he heard a thunderous explosion, this person's body shook violently, and his mind went blank. His eyes became dull. Scarlet blood seeped out of his ears, nostrils, and the corner of his mouth. Bang! Su Zimo's palm slammed down. This person's forehead shattered, and his primordial spirit was directly shattered by Su Zimo's palm. He fell on his back. In just 2 breaths of time, 2 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals were dead. Whoosh! 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 Several Mystic Immortal treasures slashed through the void aggressively, making a heart-palpitating sound as they enveloped Su Zimo. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and suddenly raised a handful of yellow sand, enveloping all the Mystic Immortal treasures. The yellow sand surged, squeezing and rubbing against each other. Crack! Numerous cracks instantly appeared on these profound-ranked magic treasures. In the blink of an eye, they were destroyed by the living soil of the 9 heavens and squeezed into a pile of fragments. "You want to kill me with this little trick?" Su Zimo sneered, and with a backhand punch, he shattered a magical power that was coming at him. He strode forward and shouted, "I am Araki Takashi, and I shall suppress everything." Su Zimo casually pointed and instantly pierced the glabella of a Stage 5 Mystic Immortal. The 3rd Stage 5 Mystic Immortal had fallen. The remaining 4 people were dumbfounded, and their eyes were filled with shock. Just now, this person had actually shattered a magical power with his flesh and blood. Shadow's eyes finally revealed a trace of fear. Chapter 1816. Although the person in front of them was only a Stage 4 Mystic Immortal, he exuded an unstoppable aura. Shadow and the other 3 were shocked. In the lower realm, they were also powerful figures. However, after ascending to the upper realm, after so many years, their sharpness had long been worn away. They knew very well that in the upper realm, even on this remote Dragon Abyss planet, they were just unknown characters. But the person in front of them was different. This person exuded an invincible aura of sharpness. I am Araki Takeshi, and I will suppress everything. The everything in this sentence was not referring to the few of them, but to the experts on this Dragon Abyss planet, and even to the experts in the upper realm. A person with such boldness was either a madman or a real ruthless person. At least, they could not afford to offend him. Seeing that Suzimo easily killed the 3 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals, Shadow already had the intention to retreat. No, only the eldest young master can kill this person. This thought flashed through Shadow's mind. He commanded the remaining 3 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals and shouted, "You guys stop him!" After saying this, Shadow was about to leave the battlefield. But just as he turned around, he saw a blur in front of him, and there was another person in front of him. This person was wearing a green robe and had delicate features. He was looking at him with a smile. Hiss! Shadow's pupil shrank to the size of a needle, and all the hair on his body stood up. How could this be? Before Shadow turned around, he clearly saw that this person was blocked by the other 3 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals. How could he appear in front of him in the blink of an eye? Was this teleportation? Shadow's eyes flashed with shock, fear, confusion, and confusion. The next moment, his vision turned black, and he felt a sharp pain in his head. He completely lost consciousness. The remaining 3 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals were also shocked. They unleashed their fiercest attacks, but all their magic treasures, magical powers, and secret techniques missed. Suzimo had actually disappeared from the spot. When they came to their senses, they saw Suzimo attack and kill Shadow with one palm. True Dragon's 9 flashes. Although Suzimo could only blink once at the moment, it had already displayed an extremely terrifying effect in battle. Suzimo turned around and looked at the remaining 3 people. His gaze was calm as he smiled faintly. This seemingly weak and refined scholar was like a devil in the eyes of the 3 of them. Run! The 3 of them felt their blood run cold. Without thinking, they turned around and fled. Suzimo activated his primordial spirit and unleashed 2 small divine arts at the same time. Normally speaking, a cultivator could only activate and release 1 divine ability at the same time. However, Suzimo's primordial spirit was now the fusion of Qinglian's primordial spirit and Dragon Phoenix's primordial spirit. He could completely release 2 divine abilities at the same time. Hell Dao, Hungry Ghost Path. 2 Buddhist divine arts erupted and landed on the heads of the 2 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals. Beside one of them, the scene changed drastically. Countless ghostly figures flashed, eerie and terrifying. Blood chi filled the air, and it was completely dark. The Hell Dao was the most ferocious of the 3 great evil Daos. Once one fell into it, it was as if they had fallen into an endless abyss. It was difficult to break free, and they would be haunted by countless vengeful ghosts. Their vitality would be devoured and they would die. The Stage 5 Mystic Immortal hurriedly released a small divine ability in an attempt to fight against the Hell Dao. However, it did not last long before his small divine ability was devoured by the Hell Dao. Ah! The person stood on the spot, as if he had fallen into a frenzy. He let out a shrill cry, and was quickly drowned by the vengeful ghosts. At the same time, the Hungry Ghost Path descended on the other Stage 5 Mystic Immortal. Around the Stage 5 Mystic Immortal, many hungry ghosts appeared. They stretched out their long scarlet tongues, and were as thin as firewood. With bloodshot eyes, they pounced on him. Bang! 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 This person attacked continuously, releasing immortal arts and divine abilities. He used his Dharma treasures to suppress the many hungry ghosts. However, the hungry ghosts were endless. They appeared continuously and pounced on him crazily, munching on his flesh and blood. Although the 3 great evil Daos of the 6 great evil Daos were small divine abilities, they were used to punish those who were extremely evil and were extremely cruel. Not long after, the 2 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals died under the 2 evil Daos. Suzimo frowned slightly. His current cultivation was only at the Stage 4 Mystic Immortal, although his primordial spirit was at the Stage 6 Mystic Immortal level. The power of the small divine abilities should not exceed that of a Stage 5 Mystic Immortal by much. The reason he released these 2 small divine abilities was to trap the 2 of them and then kill them. He did not expect that the power of these two small divine abilities was much stronger than Su Zimo had expected. They actually killed the two Stage 5 mystic immortals. It's the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind, and he quickly thought of the reason. After cultivating this Buddhist cultivation technique, when he executed Buddhist divine abilities again, the power would increase. This was only an incomplete version. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra was more powerful than Su Zimo had imagined. Su Zimo put away his thoughts and did not continue to think about it. There was still a Stage 5 mystic immortal who had escaped. He could not let that person return to Zuyangu. Su Zimo channeled his primordial spirit once more and released another divine ability. A pair of gigantic wings grew slowly behind him. They were golden in color and shone with a resplendent light. They were beautiful and flawless. This was the extreme speed divine ability of the golden-winged great rock. This divine ability was obtained by the dragon phoenix true body from cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, and was an innate divine ability. Even though Su Zimo was only at the mystic essence realm right now, he could release his innate divine abilities at will without any restrictions. Swash! With a flash of golden light, Su Zimo's figure vanished from the spot. Initially, the Stage 5 mystic immortal thought that he had escaped with his life. However, he did not expect to feel his scalp tingle before he could get far, as though he was targeted by an extremely terrifying living being. Instinctively, he turned back to look. That single look scared him out of his wits. His legs went weak, and he almost fell to the ground. Unknowingly, Su Zimo had already arrived behind him and was inches away from him. I was just lacking a mount. You're the one. Channeling his primordial spirit, Su Zimo extended his finger and tapped the Stage 5 mystic immortal gently, releasing another minor divine ability. Beast Dao. The power of a divine ability descended upon that person. The Stage 5 mystic immortal's figure transformed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, he had already shed his human form and turned into a tall and mighty yellow dog. Initially, Su Zimo wanted to turn him into a war horse. However, just now, he caught sight of a yellow dog scurrying past him from the corner of his eye. That single moment of distraction caused a mistake in the divine ability. Dog it is then. As long as it can run, it's fine. Su Zimo clapped his hands and leaped onto the back of the yellow dog. Patting the dog's head, he said, "Let's go. Let's go to Snowwind Ridge." How could the Stage 5 mystic immortal endure such humiliation? Instantly his blood surged as he cursed. Woof! 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 The moment he opened his mouth, a series of barks erupted before he could say a single word. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 1817. As soon as he spoke, he was stunned. His eyes were filled with tears, and his face was filled with grief and indignation. "Let's go, don't dawdle." Su Zimo patted the dog's head and said, "If it weren't for the lack of a mount, you would have died like those people." The big yellow dog recalled the miserable state of his companions before they died just now, and could not help but shudder. No matter what, as long as he could survive, he would have a chance to escape. With that thought, the big yellow dog was prepared to submit to Su Zimo first, and find another opportunity to escape. At that thought, the big yellow dog bared his teeth and ran toward Snowwind Ridge. Su Zimo sat on the big yellow dog and opened the storage bags of the 7 shadows. He could not help but laugh when he took a look. There were quite a lot of things in the storage bags of the 7 shadows. Other than a few magic treasures, there were a few cultivation methods and immortal skills. There were more than 20,000 core coagulation pills, including the 10,000 odd pills that he had collected from the ferocious wolf army. He had close to 40,000 essence formation pills on him. In addition, there were many immortal herbs in the storage bags of these people. In addition to the immortal herbs collected from the evil wolf army, there were more than 3 million in total. Even if he exchanged them in Zuyangu, he could exchange them for 30,000 core coagulation pills. If he could go to Longyuan City, he could even exchange them for 300,000 core coagulation pills. Of course, Su Zimo had no use for these immortal herbs at the moment. Just 40,000 soul-solidifying pills were enough for him to cultivate for a period of time. When the sky was slightly bright, Su Zimo arrived at Snow Wind Ridge riding on the big yellow dog. This time, Su Zimo did not alert anyone. He sneaked into Snow Wind Ridge quietly and came to the wooden house that he used to live in. At that moment, a fat man was lying at the door and sleeping soundly. It was Duan Tianliang. Su Zimo came this time to take Duan Tianliang away. This person knew his secret and could not stay in Snow Wind Ridge. He could either kill this person to silence him or take him with him. In addition, Su Zimo was preparing to leave Wind Snow Ridge, and he lacked someone to take care of chores like the spirit fields. Duan Tianliang was a suitable candidate. Duan Tianliang was sleeping soundly when he suddenly felt a warmth on his face. It was as if something soft and moist was brushing against his face. He subconsciously opened his eyes and saw a big yellow dog licking his face with its wet tongue. F***CKU. Where did this wild dog come from? Duan Tianliang cursed and jumped up from the ground. He immediately became energetic. After Duan Tianliang got up, he patted his storage bag without hesitation and took out a big black iron ball. He raised it above his head and shouted, "Wild dog, look at your grandpa's million-weight ball." Suddenly, Duan Tianliang was stunned when he saw Su Zimo on the big yellow dog. "Boss." Duan Tianliang blinked and then realized something. He coughed lightly to cover up his embarrassment and said with an embarrassed smile, "Boss, why are you back so early in the morning?" "Hee, I didn't know it was you." Duan Tianliang kept the million-weight ball and went forward to praise. "Boss, where did you get this mount? It's really unusual." Duan Tianliang wanted to reach out and touch the big yellow dog's head. Woof! The big yellow dog bared its teeth and stared at Duan Tianliang with an unfriendly expression. "Oh, you're quite hot-tempered." Duan Tianliang sneered and scanned the big yellow dog with his divine sense. Mystic Origin Stage 5. Duan Tianliang was shocked. Su Zimo was only at Mystic Origin Stage 4. How could he have thought that a mount's cultivation realm was higher than its master's? Duan Tianliang took a few steps back and smiled flatteringly. "Boss, you have good taste. This mount looks extraordinary. It must have a noble bloodline and belongs to the best of the dog race." Duan Tianliang was proud. His words were quite particular. Not only did he praise Su Zimo, he also praised the big yellow dog. Woof, woof, woof. Unexpectedly, the moment Duan Tianliang finished speaking, the big yellow dog became anxious and barked at Duan Tianliang. It almost jumped up and bit Duan Tianliang. The big yellow dog was originally a level 5 mystic immortal in Zhuanggu. It was not a dog race. Naturally, it was furious when Duan Tianliang said that. "Stop it." Su Zimo frowned and patted the big yellow dog's head. The big yellow dog whimpered and did not dare to make a sound. It could only bare its teeth at Duan Tianliang and show a fierce look. Duan Tianliang was even more confused. He did not know how his words had provoked the big yellow dog. Su Zimo said, "I've already said goodbye to Miss, and am ready to leave Snow Wind Ridge." "Ah." Duan Tianliang was stunned for a moment. He blinked and asked tentatively, "Boss, do you need someone by your side? Do you want to bring me along?" Su Zimo nodded and said, "I came back this time to bring you along." Duan Tianliang complained in his heart, but his face was wild with joy. He said, "How can I, Duan Tianliang, be trusted by boss so much?" Enough." Su Zimo interrupted him and said, "Pack up and get ready to leave." "Okay." Duan Tianliang agreed readily and ran away. Su Zimo patted the big yellow dog and walked in the direction of another spiritual field. Not long after, he saw another wooden house. At this time, a middle-aged man was carefully pushing the door open. It was Lao Yen. When Su Zimo first arrived at Snow Wind Ridge, the first person he met was Lao Yen. Although the two of them did not know each other much, Lao Yen told him a lot of things and took care of him. Su Zimo remembered all these. "Brother Su?" Lao Yen looked up and was slightly stunned when he saw Su Zimo not far away. The dog barking just now had woken him up. He got up and was about to go out to take a look, but he did not expect to bump into Su Zimo. "Brother Su, Didn't you go to Zuyinga with Missy? Why are you back so early? Lao Yin went up and asked in surprise. Su Zimo nodded and said, I came back alone. This time, I'm also here to say goodbye to you. Why? Are you leaving, Brother Su? Lao Yin said, You've just been promoted to Missy's personal guard. Why are you leaving so soon? Did you have a conflict with Commander Liang? Back then, everyone saw the enmity between Liang Qiu and Su Zimo. No. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and did not say much. Everyone would know about this when Xia Qingying returned. Su Zimo said, Lao Yin, here's a cultivation technique for spirit concentration. I'll give it to you. Su Zimo took out a cultivation technique from his storage bag and handed it to Lao Yin. This cultivation technique was obtained from Zuyinga's shadow. Lao Yan's hands trembled slightly. In order to obtain such a cultivation technique, he had to save up spirit concentration pills for tens of thousands of years before he could exchange for one. And now, Su Zimo gave him such a valuable cultivation technique. End of chapter. Chapter 1818. Brother Su, this is too precious. Lao Yan's face was a little red, and his hands were trembling slightly as he held the spirit concentration technique. It's nothing. Su Zimo smiled and said, I don't have any use for this technique by my side. Just accept it. What's wrong? At this moment, a woman pushed open the door and asked softly. Lao Yan looked excited as he handed the technique to the woman and said, Look, this is the spirit concentration technique that Brother Su is giving to our child. Ah! When the woman saw the technique, she was also shocked and exclaimed softly. Over the past year, Su Zimo had heard Lao Yan mention her before. This should be Lao Yan's Dao companion Ningyu. The two of them did not ascend at the same time, but they came from the same small kiliacosm. It was also a rare fate for them to be able to meet in Snow Wind Ridge. Later on, they became Dao companions in Snow Wind Ridge. Ningyu seemed to have thought of something and said, Quick! Give all the condensing pills that you've accumulated over the years to Brother Su. Yes. Old Yen snapped to his senses as well, and hurriedly took out a storage bag, handing it to Su Zimo. Brother Su, these are the essence-gathering elixirs that I've accumulated over the years. There's more than 700 of them. There's no need. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and said, Consider this a small gift from me to my nephew before I leave this time. Lao Yin pondered for a moment and said, All right, since Brother Su said so, I'll accept it shamelessly. In the future, if Brother Su has any orders, I'll definitely go through fire and water. Brother Su, you're leaving, and you haven't seen Little Pingon. Come and take a look. Ningyu said with a smile. Little Ping, and was Old Yan's child's nickname. Both he and Ningyu hoped that their child could grow up peacefully and live out his life peacefully. Su Zimo nodded and followed Lao Yan and Ningyu to the door of the room. Lao Yan opened the door and saw an exquisite cradle made of green bamboo in the middle of the room. A child of 2 or 3 years old was sleeping in it. His face was red, and his pink little fists were tightly clenched. This child was Lao Yan's only hope. Su Zimo didn't enter the room. He only paused at the door for a moment before retreating. He then took out 2 more profound ranked magic treasures from his storage pouch and handed them over to Old Yen and Old Yen. Brother Su you. Lao Yen was completely stunned. He couldn't believe it. Although these 2 Dharma treasures were only low-grade profound rank, they were still extremely valuable treasures to them. Take it. Su Zimo smiled lightly and threw down the 2 profound rank magic treasures. Then he turned around and mounted Big Yellow, before galloping back the way he came. Not far away, Duan Tianliang was running towards them. Let's go. Follow me. Su Zimo said as he led the way out of Wind and Snow Ridge. Duan Tianliang trotted behind him. Big Yellow was still holding a grudge against Duan Tianliang, so he ran fast on purpose. Duan Tianliang followed behind and almost broke his legs. Su Zimo scolded the big yellow dog to slow down, so that Duan Tianliang had a chance to catch his breath. Boss, does this mount of yours have a name? Duan Tianliang finally caught up with him and asked while panting. No. Su Zimo said, I think it should be called Big Yellow. Duan Tianliang said maliciously. Woof! Big Yellow barked at Duan Tianliang furiously with a sorrowful expression. Sure. Su Zimo nodded. Duan Tianliang winked at Big Yellow and sneered secretly. You little beast, you still want to fight with me? Boss, where are we going? Duan Tianliang asked again. Su Zimo said. There's no place on Dragon Abyss planet where there are no forces gathered. Su Zimo was prepared to find a secluded place to cultivate in seclusion. Right now, he had close to 40,000 essence condensation pills in his storage pouch, which was enough for him to cultivate for a long time. There were still many unknowns about Dragon Abyss planet and the upper realm. However, he had to raise his cultivation as soon as possible to have enough strength to explore these unknowns. This, Duan Tianliang thought for a moment and said, more than half of Dragon Abyss planet is actually a wilderness filled with all sorts of living beings and ferocious beasts. It's extremely dangerous and no one would go there. Of course, those living beings and ferocious beasts would not dare to come out easily either. Su Zimo said, all right, let's go take a look at the wilderness. After saying that, Big Yellow, who was beneath Su Zimo, had a look of joy in its eyes. The wilderness was filled with all sorts of living beings, strong and weak. There were all sorts of living beings and danger lurked everywhere. It was said that some of the plants in the wilderness could even eat humans. If Su Zimo were to head to the wilderness, he would definitely die there, and Big Yellow could find an opportunity to escape. That's right. I must bite that fatty to death before I escape. At that thought, Big Yellow was invigorated and headed towards the wilderness. At the same time, Zuyingu, Chen Xinyang frowned with a dark expression. As soon as he sent the people of Wind Snow Ridge away, he learned that Su Zimo had left in the middle of the night. There was still no news of Shadow, and the others chasing after him. Eldest young master. At that instant, a subordinate rushed toward Chen Xinyang with a panicked expression. He dropped to his knees and said while panting, Shadow and 6 other rank 5 mystic immortals are dead. What? Chen Xuanyang's eyes flickered coldly as his entire being was filled with a murderous aura. The person said, according to my understanding, Shadow sent 7 rank 5 mystic immortals from Zuyingu to hunt down Su Zimo. Now 6 of them are dead and their storage bags have been taken away. The last one is missing. Well. Chen Xinyang clenched his teeth and said coldly, Su Zimo, well done. I've underestimated you. Eldest young master, what should we do? The Zuyingu cultivator asked. Chen Xinyang said coldly, pass down my order. Search for Su Zimo. I can't do it. No force in Zuyingu will take him in. Also keep an eye on Wind Snow Ridge. Understood. The Zuyingu cultivator replied and left. What Chen Xinyang did not know was that Su Zimo had already left Blood Sun Valley's territory on Big Yellow, and was heading towards the wildlands where no one had set foot in. The 2 of them, and the dog ran for 7 days, before they arrived at the edge of the wilderness. In front of them was a dense forest with many ancient trees that towered into the sky. It was dark and gloomy inside, and it was filled with an ancient and savage aura. Big Yellow stared with his eyes wide open. He looked uncertain and fearful, and he stopped moving forward. Duan Tianliang swallowed his saliva and asked, Boss, why don't we settle down outside? I can build a cave for you in a few days. Let's go. Su Zimo looked calm as he patted Big Yellow's head. His tone was calm, but there was no room for doubt. Big Yellow cursed in his heart, but he could only force himself to move forward into the forest. Duan Tianliang followed at the back with a cautious look. Chapter 1819. Su Zimo rode on Big Huang and entered the forest slowly. Due to the lush foliage of the ancient trees that covered the skies, there was almost no sunlight in the forest, and the surroundings were dark and quiet. The ground was covered with many branches and leaves. Beneath their feet, there were rustling sounds that were extremely clear in the quiet environment. Big Huang's footsteps slowed down. For some reason, there was an extremely strange aura in the forest that caused one to feel extremely stifled. Duan Tianliang followed behind Big Huang with a pale face. He looked around nervously, and a thin layer of sweat had already formed on his forehead. The forest was extremely quiet, and there were no living beings or ferocious beasts to be seen. However, Big Huang and Duan Tianliang felt increasingly uneasy. Snap! Suddenly, a crisp sound came from beneath Duan Tianliang's feet. It was extremely ear-piercing in the forest. Duan Tianliang froze and looked down instinctively. Beneath his feet, he was actually stepping on a piece of broken white bone. It was unknown how many years had passed since this white bone appeared to be extremely fragile. With just a light step, it broke into 2 pieces. Just now, the bone was covered by many leaves. Duan Tianliang's attention was focused on his surroundings, and he did not notice what was beneath his feet. It's fine, it's fine. Duan Tianliang calmed himself down and forced a smile as he continued walking forward. However, he had not taken 2 steps when the sound of bones cracking could be heard beneath his feet once more. He stepped on another piece of white bone. Duan Tianliang's expression changed. "Boss, hold on for a moment," Duan Tianliang said softly and looked around. Conjuring hand seals and waving his sleeves, a few whirlwinds were formed in the surroundings, blowing the fallen leaves on the ground. When the fallen leaves floated up, Duan Tianliang and Big Huang were shocked when they saw what was on the ground. The ground of the forest was filled with white bones that stretched as far as the eye could see. "Psst!" Duan Tianliang gasped. How dangerous was this place for so many living beings to die here? "BB boss, let's retreat." Duan Tianliang's voice was trembling slightly. Before he could say anything, Big Yellow could no longer withstand the fear. Even without Su Zimo's order, he had already begun to retreat. However, he had only taken a few steps when he realized that his path of retreat had been completely sealed off. Those originally motionless branches seemed to have a life of their own. They were like thick spiritual snakes that intertwined together, sealing off their retreat. The ancient trees suddenly emitted a bloody aura. On the surface of the ancient tree, there were faint vein-like patterns that flowed with scarlet blood. "It's over. My life is over." Duan Tianliang looked terrified and disheartened. The ancient trees in this forest actually relied on devouring living beings to cultivate and grow. There were all sorts of strange things in the 3,000 worlds. Over the years, this dense forest had devoured countless living creatures and ferocious beasts. None of the ferocious beasts that were trapped in this place would be able to leave alive. All of them would have their flesh and blood completely devoured. From the beginning to the end, Su Zimo sat calmly on Big Yellow's back. His spirit perception was way too strong. Long before he entered this forest, he had already sensed that there was something strange about it. The scene before his eyes was within his expectations. When he saw the many emerald green branches coiling towards Su Zimo, Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow, Su Zimo suddenly spoke. "It's not easy for the plant race to cultivate," Su Zimo said slowly. "I don't want to destroy your cultivation. Don't make things difficult for me either." The branches paused for a moment. Then these ancient trees actually emitted a feeling of mockery. Even Big Yellow and Duan Tianliang could sense it. The next moment, even more branches tore through the air and coiled towards Su Zimo like emerald green venomous snakes. "Since that's the case, don't blame me." Su Zimo floated down from Big Yellow's back. Stepping on the ground with both feet, he channeled his blood chi and seemed to have vanished. Replacing him on the spot was an emerald green Qinglian that soared into the skies. It shone with a resplendent glow that dyed the heavens in a bedazzling manner. Instantly, the many branches paused and shrunk instinctively, as though they had seen something terrifying. "Absorb." Su Zimo channeled his blood chi, and countless roots and branches extended from his feet, burrowing into the ground. They coiled around the ancient trees in the dense forest, and absorbed their life essence wildly. The Qinglian was the only creation in the world, and was the god of the plant race. Back in Tianhuang mainland, the experts of the Bloodvine race wanted to devour Su Zimo's bloodline, but they were devoured instead. Those ancient trees were far from being as strong as the Bloodvine race. That was essence stealing. In the plant race, if they grew at the same time, the stronger plants would steal the essence of the other plants. For example, the reason why the spirit farmers had to weed frequently in the spirit fields was because they were worried that the weeds would steal the essence of the essence nurturing grass and rain flower, and affect the growth of the 2 immortal herbs. But now, the grade 9 creation Qinglian was absorbing the surrounding essence in the dense forest, and the ancient trees could not defend against it at all. Under the watchful gazes of Big Yellow and Duan Tianliang, the dense branches that extended towards them were the first to wither and droop. Immediately after, the towering ancient trees in the surroundings turned yellow bit by bit, and their life force drained rapidly as well. Originally, this dense forest was like a sea of green. However, it didn't take long before the green sea began to turn yellow, and eventually spread to the entire forest. In that withered yellow ocean, only the center region shone with a resplendent glow. There a creation Qinglian was swaying and glowing. Unlike cultivators of Tianhuang mainland, Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow had never heard of the legend of the creation Qinglian. However, at that moment, both of them realized that the Qinglian before them was definitely a heaven-defying existence. Within a few hours, the dense forest withered completely. All the ancient trees died because Su Zimo stole their essence. Su Zimo's figure appeared once more as he heaved a long sigh of relief. After absorbing and refining the essence of the dense forest, his cultivation realm had improved by quite a bit as well. The creation Qinglian was way too domineering. If he did not control it, and allowed the Qinglian's true body to steal the essence of the surrounding plants to grow and cultivate, all the plants on Dragon Abyss planet would be devoured by him. Of course, Su Zimo did not dare to cause such a huge commotion. Duan Tianliang was already dumbfounded. Big Yellow stood at the side and shivered as well. Initially, he was still thinking of finding an opportunity to escape, but now he had already given up on that thought. The scholar with delicate features in front of him was like a devil. He could refine him with just a thought. His fate would probably be similar to the withered trees around him. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.